Well, good morning, everybody. It's 9 o'clock. We'll call a meeting to order. Welcome to those online. I neglected to ask the clerk whose turn it was to read you. Very good. If you'd read the land acknowledgement, that would be appreciated.
Thank you and good morning, Mayor Milne and Council. As we gather, we recognize and acknowledge the traditional keepers of this land with whom we share today. The Township of Southgate is part of the traditional territories of the Anishinaabe, Six Nations of the Grand River, the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation, the Haudenosaunee, and the Saugeen Métis. The land that surrounds us is part of who we are as it reflects our histories. May we live in peace and friendship with all of its diverse people.
Thank you, Barb. Is there anybody registered for open forum, Madam Clerk?
None today, Mayor
Okay.
Milne.
Thank you. Confirmation of the agenda. Would someone care to move? Martin and Jim, any discussion? All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Is there any declaration of pecuniary interest related to any item on today's agenda? Not seeing any. I will be declaring on, I wrote it down. Report 2023-041. I'll be declaring an interest on that one. Delegations and presentations. Is Sarah McNulty? Oh, that's no problem. No problem. Would you rather us take the next one and would that be all right? All right. So if our next one, Wilton Consulting Group, they are here, I see. Come on up and the floor. Oh, we need a motion to receive the report. Jim and Barb. Ladies, the floor is yours. Good morning.
Good morning. I think I just need a clicker for the, oh. That looks promising. The clicker won't work. Oh, you'll flip for me? Okay, perfect. Excellent. Good morning, Mayor Milne and members of council. We're very happy to be here again this morning and nice to see all of you again. So we're here this morning to present the final version of the strategic plan and called Rooted in Community, Embracing Our Future. And if we can just advance to the next slide. Great. Perfect. So what we're going to talk to you about this morning is just go through the vision, mission, core values, and guiding principles. Then I'll be turning things over to Krista to present the strategic priorities and the goals and some of the action items. And I know you have a busy agenda this morning, so we'll try and get through things fairly quickly for you. All right. So the vision for the strategic plan, and you'll remember we had some good discussions right here in this room about the wording. So the vision we came up with to land on was a vibrant community where people, the economy, and the natural environment thrive while embracing our rural and agricultural roots. And the mission is to provide enhanced and reliable municipal services for Southgate's community and businesses to ensure sustainability now and into the future. And the core values we discussed as a group and with your community are the things that a municipality stands for. And our core values will help lead us through decision-making in the township. And those core values for your strategic plan are community, equity, diversity, inclusion and accessibility, collaboration, and reliability and integrity. And the guiding principles are the actions identified in the community strategic plan will be conducted with each guiding principle in mind. So the guiding principles for your strategic plan are fiscal responsibility, transparency, and enhancing resiliency. And with that, I'm going to turn things over to Krista to go through the strategic priorities and goals and some of the action items. Krista.
Thank you. Great. So the three strategic priorities are a thriving economy, happy, healthy communities, and operational excellence. Go to the next. Thank you. Under a thriving economy, the goals are support the growth and development of existing businesses in Southgate, foster an open for business mindset to build entrepreneurship in Southgate, attract new businesses to Southgate, and revitalize downtown Dundalk to enhance its beauty and restore pride of place in the downtown. Each of the goals has several action items, and we'll go over a couple this morning. You can go to the next slide. Thank you. Under happy, healthy communities, the goals are as follows. So ensure spaces for recreation and leisure in the township meet the needs of the growing community all year round for people of all ages, abilities, incomes, and cultures. Improve access to services that contribute to physical and mental health and well-being. Improve access to housing. Enhance community safety and foster positive relationships between newcomers to the community and existing residents. And last but not least, under operational excellence, we have positioned Southgate as a leading small rural municipal employer, provide excellent customer service to Southgate ratepayers and community members, ensure diligent maintenance and long-term sustainability of township assets and infrastructure, and advance strategic priorities and improve community engagement. So I'll highlight just maybe one action item per goal here. But under this first goal of supporting the growth and development of existing businesses, one of the action items, for example, is to conduct a business retention and expansion study and implement the results from this study. And we'll look at doing that within year 1 of the strategic plan. Thank you. Under foster an open for business mindset to build entrepreneurship in Southgate, we can develop entrepreneurship and business hub. So for example, looking at a shared workspace environment with access to internet and opportunities to support small business enterprises in the township, looking at about year 2 to 3. Under attract new businesses to Southgate, we have, for example, here 3A is to continue to attract businesses to Southgate's employment lands and eco park with a focus on clean energy and eco-friendly businesses and medium to large employers. And this will be an ongoing action item, something we'll look at doing every year throughout the strategic plan. When we look at revitalizing downtown Dundalk, we have a couple of action items here. One, for example, being 4B, increasing participation in the Community Improvement Plan program. So looking at programs like the Tax Increment Equivalent Grant Program, the Facade and Building Improvement Grants, and other programs as under the CIP in Dundalk and across the township through enhanced promotion. So what that looks like could include streamlining the application process for the CIP program, and then setting annual targets for CIP participation and reporting on those targets. Thank you. Under healthy, happy communities, looking at this first goal here with ensuring spaces for recreation and leisure in the township meet the needs of the growing community. Action 5A here is updating the recreation master plan to include parks and culture in consultation with the community. And key areas to explore could include a needs assessment to inform opportunities for a multi-use facility that could potentially be integrated with a new administration center. And this goes along with earlier action items as well. Looking at improving access to services that contribute to physical and mental health and well-being. We have action 6A, for example, which is related to an earlier item under the first strategic priority, but attracting healthy living services and businesses. So for example, mental health, dental care, another grocery store, a cafe, potentially, multicultural food stores, and others to the township. Goal number 7 is improve access to housing. And for example, 7B here is work with developers and landowners to increase rental housing opportunities within the township. So for example, exploring opportunities to encourage rental housing development through the development charges study. And that's an ongoing action item. Goal 8 is enhance community safety. 8A here is develop a fire services master plan to ensure that fire services meet the needs of the Southgate community. So looking at that in year 2. Goal 9, foster positive relationships between newcomers to the community and existing residents. 9A here is continuing to partner or participate on Grey Bruce local immigration partnership, welcoming communities, age-friendly communities, and other county committees and initiatives, bringing items and collaborative efforts forward for support and action. And that's ongoing as well. Goal number 10, now we're under operational excellence here, is to position Southgate as a leading small rural municipal employer. 10C here is encourage a culture of excellence throughout the township through education and continuous improvement initiatives. And this is something that will be ongoing throughout the term of the community strategic plan. Goal 11, provide excellent customer service to Southgate ratepayers and community members. 11B here is conduct and implement an operational and service delivery review to ensure the township services will meet the growing needs of the community rather. And we'll look at that within years 1 and 2. Goal 12 is to ensure diligent maintenance and long-term sustainability of township assets and infrastructure. 12C is an enable Township of Southgate initiatives related to managing municipal and public assets to align with the Grey County Climate Change Action Plan. That action plan is 2023 to 2026. So this will be something ongoing throughout the community strategic plan. And goal 13, advance strategic priorities and improve community engagement. 13A here is to develop a communications and engagement strategy to increase the quality of communications with the public for transparent government operations and to enhance citizen participation. Within year 2, we'll look to do that. Great, that was quick. Thank you. And if anybody has questions, feel free
Thank
to.
you, Krista.
Yes.
Is there any questions? Are there any questions? Monica?
Hi, good morning. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Thank you.
Good morning, council, and good morning to Wilton Group. Thank you for the presentation. Exciting times ahead. One question I did have, this is definitely evolving, flowing, and ongoing, as was mentioned in the presentation. So as the time goes by during this period, what would be the opportunities to possibly update or to enhance maybe some things as needed? Is that something that the opportunity to be made? Is that already built into the review and system as we go forward in these 5 years?
Yeah, thank you, Monica, for that question. And yeah, I do see it is a strategic plan and it's a living, breathing document. So I think with the senior management team, they'll be able to look at this on an annual basis and provide updates. So yeah, action items are fairly clear. So it'll be fairly easy to kind of create a bit of a reporting system back to council. So I think that's how the staff, senior team and the council should look at it together, as this is evolving as your term of council and as the time period for the strategic plan unfolds. So yeah, great question. I think that is something important to look at as you go forward in terms of kind of checking in annually on progress against the strategic plan.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Not seeing any. Barb, go ahead. Sorry.
Thank you, and through you, thank you very much. Yes, it's a very well thought out and pulled together report. I did have a question. Did you get my you got my list of little housekeeping things? So I won't bore that. In the final document, that not this one, not the presentation, but it indicates the Mennonite community is in excess of 480 people. I think that is grossly understated. And I wondered where you got that number from.
Yes, thank you. Great question. So the number in the strategic plan with regards to the Mennonite community was from the Canadian Census data. So that was from 2021 census data. And they have a methodology to estimate the Mennonite communities. And so that's where they got that number. And it is likely underestimated, but that's the best data that we could find on that piece. And I'd be happy to follow up as well with how the census calculates those numbers.
Yeah, I personally don't think it's accurate, but maybe we omit the number and a thriving and growing Mennonite community as opposed to putting a number on it, because yeah, that's my comment. Thank you.
All right. Any others? Martin.
Thank you, Brian. Just a comment. When I first read this, I said to myself, this is so different from the other one, because at least here, there's no fuzzy words, like it is down to earth plans. And you see so many strategic plans saying, oh, we won't do this because it's the good for everyone, like it's kind of in the clouds. So I'm interested in seeing the final because I can't see anything wrong with this right now. It's up. I like the emphasis on the actual staff and the organization, because if you don't have that, you're not going to be able to get anything else done. So it's good, just a good job. Thanks.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
And just one more, 9B. It talks about a host an annual newcomer and volunteer celebration. Is this the final document, or is there going to be, one with maybe some changes where we might suggest that be host a community mixer and volunteer celebration? If there's, it includes everyone that way, not just people who are new to the community.
Yes, so this is the very close to final document, but there's room to make. We have your housekeeping items that you'd sent through via Dina the other day. So we'll be making a few small tweaks and just doing another final copy edit as well. So if there are a couple little things like that you want to see, just the wording softened a little bit or changed just a tiny bit, then certainly you can let Dina know, and she'll gather them up and send them to us for the final version. But yeah, this one's very close to that. But a couple things that you've just mentioned, those are reasonable to
Thank you.
modify a little bit. Yeah.
I always liken the strategic plan to a budget. It's your best shot at getting it right, but there's always room to massage it, always room to wiggle.
Yes.
So but I do appreciate all the work and efforts that's gone into this document. And I think you, by and large, you've got it right.
Great. Thank you.
Sorry, Monica, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. So just for going forward and the purposes of what Wilton has done at this point, just for the public to know, just to get an idea. So now we're going to be looking to do a final copy. And then after that final copy, what will the involvement look like from Wilton? Will it then go to our township staff for us to follow up with, and just to kind of get a logistical idea of the moving forward piece?
Sure, I can take a first stab at answering that, but if Dina or Brian want to weigh in as well. So this is our last touch point with council and staff today. We will just follow up with Dina on that final version with the few little minor modifications that we'll make following today's presentation and discussion. And then it's over to all of you to carry it forward, and for the staff to take it on as their strategic plan moving forward, but also for all of council as well. So I think that's, from our perspective, will be finished after today, with the exception of a couple more conversations with Dina. And then Brian, I don't know if you want to comment on the process in terms of adopting the strategic plan and approving it.
Well, I'm not, I won't comment on how we're going to implement this, other than to say that it's in place, and it's for staff to, gives direction to staff of what to do. But we've been doing it for so long that maybe some councillors aren't aware of it. But if you look at the end of any report that comes before council, you'll see that there's an action, and it refers back to the strategic plan as to what this report, how that is linked to the strategic plan. And I look forward to that continuing forward, because it does very clearly indicate how we're progressing on the strategic plan. And again, as was noted, this strategic plan is very straightforward, and the actionable items are very clear. So it should be very good progress, I would think, going forward. Barb.
Thank you. And if I may add, I was relaying that to the end of each of our staff reports, where you tie how this achieves one of the goals in the strategic plan. But annually, the tradition has been that there is an annual report out to the residents. The mayor usually makes how the year went, an annual review, and you go through the actions and goals. And I would imagine that is what you plan on continuing, perhaps, Dina?
Dina?
Through you, Mayor Milne. Absolutely. I think what we will do is, because this strategic plan also encompasses some of the very important leftover kind of goals from the last CAP. I think what we'll do is just change our reports so that it is now focused on this strategic plan. And then also there'll be a year in review kind of document that we would want to put in place. Of course, and I think the mayor touched on it, absolutely some of the goals and action items require budget and resources, and that will come forward, during the budget process. And in order to, meet some of these goals, specifically, I'm thinking about some of the plans that are suggested, some of the studies. So we will go forward in that direction, and I'm excited to see a new strategic plan for the community.
Any other questions?
Yeah, just a follow.
Martin, and then I'll come to Monica. Martin, go ahead.
Yeah, just piggybacking on Deputy Mayor, I guess it's for Dina and Lindsay. Barb mentioned a yearly report. Will this report go to the library, hard copy? Will it go to like in the township office when it's done, finalized?
We haven't really fleshed out how we're going to do that, but there are some communications that go out to the public as well. And I think it's important that not only we bring a yearly kind of review to council, but that we incorporate that within our yearly newsletter to the public, potentially the spring tax bill. When we put in that report, we could do a year in review of the previous year so that everyone is also getting it in their mailbox as well as at the council table.
And so,
Monica? Oh, sorry,
so
Martin,
this
go ahead.
report that we get from it will be hard copied and placed, this one, when it's finalized?
Yes, the strategic plan itself, when it's finalized, will be up on our website,
Yep.
and we can have a copy in the office for anyone to review.
Great.
Monica?
Yes, just through you, Chair, I do agree the actionable items on the reports are really important. It helps to explain our why for the reports that are happening. So I think that tie-in is always important. Just a final question for the final presentation. Will there also be a presentation like this again? Or will this just be something that the town staff will be going over in on regular council? Or what would be the final presentation essentially?
This is intended to be the final because the motion is to approve the strategic plan. If council is comfortable with that, otherwise we can, defer it and bring it back another go. Although not necessarily to bring the good folks from Fergus up again. Does that answer your question, Monica?
Yes, essentially, like, I would personally like to see a final before voting. But that's up to the rest of council as well. If everyone's comfortable with this, then.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Barb? Go ahead.
I was just wondering, we are approving this in principle, pending any final housekeeping changes that, may be gone through, grammar, typos, things like that. We would be receiving the final on a future report, certainly but without a formal presentation. Is kind of how I felt this would go. Like we would definitely receive the final document
Oh, yeah.
on a future agenda, correct?
Through your Mayor Milne, if you so wish, you can. I think the changes are minor in nature. There was a couple grammatical things and just a wording change. We weren't going to entertain any changes that would change the effect or germane idea of any of the action items. So I think council can feel comfortable that the action items would remain largely the same. There wouldn't be much change. If you want to see it back again, we can certainly bring it back again, but it is very similar to when you approve a bylaw and it says substantially in the form of. It will be substantially in the form of with just minor changes, wording changes.
Thank you.
Okay. Any further questions? Okay, I'll call the question. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much, ladies. It's been a pleasure working with you folks, and perhaps in the future we'll see you again.
Yes, and likewise, it's been great working with the Township of Southgate. Really good to get to know your community and all of you. And hopefully we'll cross paths at Roma or some other kind of events like
good.
that. So
Excellent.
thanks again and have a great meeting and great rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Let's go back. Sarah, are you ready? Excellent. Come on forward and we'll talk livestock. Is there a motion to receive the delegation, please? Martin and Jim.
Okay.
The floor is yours, ma'am.
Good morning. My name is Sarah McNulty. I live at 280 Main Street West in Dundalk. My husband and I and our children have lived here since 2019 when we purchased our first home. We are now on our second purchased home here. The reason I am speaking here today is to discuss the bylaw that does not permit backyard chickens based on our zoning area, which is R2. We currently have 5 backyard chickens, all of which are egg-laying hens. I have 3 boys who are aged 5, 6, and 22. My middle son, who is here today, has ADHD. These chickens are very therapeutic for him and have helped him out a lot, especially when we have been reaching out for help for him with his diagnosis. Our healthcare system is overwhelmed and I have put him on wait list after wait list, and we still have not received the help he needs. All of my boys help to take care of the chickens and clean up after them. Each week their bedding is changed and my kids have taken such pride in doing so. Our chickens and their care have been very educational to all of us. My boys get very excited every morning to collect the eggs. They have learned how to take care of the chickens and where the eggs actually come from. I would like to point out the following. My chickens harm no one and cause minimal nuisance. My chickens are free ranged in our fenced backyard. They forage all day long and that includes eating ticks, which can lead to Lyme disease, which can be fatal. They also eat mosquitoes, which carry malaria and Zika. They provide food for us. Free-range eggs are far more nutritious than the store-bought eggs, which more than often come from caged chickens. Free-range eggs are 1/3 less cholesterol than store-bought eggs, which is imperative to my husband's health as he does have high cholesterol. The government speaks of Green New Deal this and Green New Deal that, sustainable development this and sustainable development that. The most economical friendly way, this is the most economical friendly way for egg consumption. When you consider the eggs you buy in the store can be up to 6 months old and must be trucked from farm to cold storage, from cold storage to grocery store, and then consumers must commute to the grocery stores and back, which produces far more carbon than our backyard chickens would ever produce. As for the excrement and feathers mess, the feces are biodegradable and can be used as compost as well as the bedding, and the feathers get used by other birds to make nests. If there's an argument about the backyard waste and feathers, what is the difference between the Mennonites' horses leaving feces in the middle of the street all over town? I have spoken to my neighbors on either side of us, including the ones who back onto us in our backyard. They have all said they do not mind our chickens as they are not a bother at all. Overall, I am just asking for the Township of Southgate to consider changing the bylaw for backyard chickens, of course, within reason, based on the positive effects they have, which I do believe outweigh the negative.
Thank you very much, Sarah.
You're
Are there any questions for Sarah? Joan?
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, through the chair. Good morning, council. I just have one question, Sarah. Do you have a rooster and how do you dispose of the manure?
So we no longer have a rooster. We did. He's no longer with us anymore. As for the feces, we actually just clean it all up and put it in the compost.
Thank you.
You're
Thank you.
welcome.
Any other questions? Martin?
Just a comment, I guess, with the bylaw, if we want to look at it, we could have different levels, like you've mentioned, your free range.
Yes.
My only concern is that I've known people in other towns where they've actually had them cooped. And then there's rat problems. And I know that's not your position.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying with the bylaw. I guess we could look at it,
Yeah, that would be great.
but there is the bylaw officer is here too.
Yeah,
So
he-
there's a lot of other things that influence the bylaw.
Of
So
course. and
unless you're,
we
other
have
than
taken-
your personal
Yeah,
situations.
we have taken that into consideration. And again, like we clean up after the chickens. Actually, my 2 youngest boys do. They are very good at shoveling out all the stuff from the coop. So because we do clean up after them, like there's not real, we haven't had any issues with any other animals in the backyard. So and again, like I've spoken to my neighbors on either side of us and the neighbor who's on the back, to us, and they haven't noticed any problems either with other animals coming around. So I think that, you know, we have taken that into consideration as well. You're welcome.
Any other questions? Jason?
I guess I don't really see a problem with it either. I wonder if we looked into it, you know, set a number, no more than
Yeah.
10 or something like that. You know, all we hear about is environment, and she makes a very good point. You know, what's more environmental than that? So, you know, if it's set at a certain number, I don't see a problem with it at all. It's lots of people have 4 or 5 big dogs in their house and make a lot more manure than 5 chickens, and nobody's talking about that. So it's up to bylaw to, you know, if you get a complaint. So I don't know. I think it's worth looking into.
Well, certainly that's council's prerogative to review a bylaw. No question about that. Any other questions on the delegation today? We're not going to debate the merits of the bylaw. Any questions on the delegation? Monica?
Thank you, Chair. Through you to the CAO or anyone who would be able to answer. My understanding that except for residential zone 6, that is where this is allowed. So has there been you know, any major concerns in that area regarding reports or concerns?
I'll direct that to Bev, please.
Thank you. Through the mayor, our zoning bylaw only allows livestock on A1, A2, and R6 properties currently. And we do get quite a few complaints about livestock on our residential zonings.
Follow up?
Monica?
Thank you through you, Chair, just to to Bev there. The livestock, do we have a particular species that's mostly the concern that's mentioned in the reports? Is it essentially mostly chickens, or do we know offhand? I know that's a broad question.
Bev?
Through the mayor, I would comment that in towns, urban areas, it is mostly chickens, but there are also many complaints in the rural areas regarding other livestock.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Barb?
So if this bylaw were to be reviewed and there was an appetite to allow backyard chickens, we'd have to do a fair amount of studying on what our neighbor municipalities are doing. And currently most of them prohibit them. But the restrictions that would be placed on a urban property, as far as the building code for the coop and regular inspections by the canine control, I guess, that'll increase our cost. The requirements for regular proof of veterinary inspections, you know, that increases costs to having backyard chickens dramatically. So if this were to be considered, I would anticipate that all of those requirements would be imposed. I do remember a staff report back, I believe it was in 2019, where the planner didn't recommend that we continue or we allow or change the bylaw to allow backyard chickens in the urban setting. We do have a municipal water system. We have, we don't want another Walkerton, obviously. And if we allow chickens in everyone's backyards, then we could have a problem. And then who decides who gets the chickens and who doesn't? So I'm recalling what has transpired in the past here as well as in our neighboring municipalities. So that would be, you know, serious consideration as far as, oh, if we let one person do it, then everyone's going to do it. And then we have a problem with our water system and everyone gets sick. Thank you.
Might I add that Orangeville has started a pilot project of 3 or 4 backyard chickens recently.
Okay. Jason?
Well, just to follow up on Barb's comments, I don't why do we have to compare to what the other municipalities do? I don't understand that. And when you go to the contaminating the water with 5 chickens, there's a lot more dog crap in the backyards and chickens, I think. I don't know. I just don't see a problem with it. If we keep the number down to 5 or 8 or something like that, but just a comment.
As I said, I didn't want to get into
well,
a debate about the merits of the bylaw. I just wanted to, I certainly appreciate Sarah and her son, I presume,
Oh, this is my husband.
husband.
Yeah,
Okay.
he was sick yesterday, but he's fine today.
All right. He's a very young looking husband. That's good. All right. Any other questions?
Yes.
Oh, Monica, go ahead. Sorry.
Thank you, Chair. No problem. Yes, and just to the rest of the points, Ms. McNulty, Mr. McNulty, certainly understand the very well written and expressed matter that you have brought forth, especially in the day and age that we are in. The word evolving is really something that we are all facing. So having self-sufficiency and being able to have eggs, it's a low-cost item that you can make various ways. And with food costs and all these things, I would say that it would be a good idea to at least take a look at reviewing the bylaw for sure. Along with everything that Mrs. McNulty already reviewed. I don't have to get back into it, but having fresh eggs, sustainability, if we have a way to have educational opportunities, how to maintain it, and the stress reduction that you talked about, environmental benefits there. I know there's pros and cons to that. So I just wanted to add that point too. I certainly understand the reasoning for this review, and it's possibly the time to review it to get a better idea. Thank you.
Thank you, Monica.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, not seeing any questions. Thank you very much for your time. We appreciate you coming and expressing your opinions.
Thank you.
All those in favor of receiving the report? Sorry? Go ahead.
It sounds as though if we receive this for information, that's all we do,
For now, yes.
unless
If
Someone-
if someone wants to make bring a report forward, then they can make that request. All those in favor of receiving the delegation? That's carried. Thank you very much. Okay, moving on to our next delegation is the Mount Forest Energy Proposed Battery Energy Storage System. We'll have someone move that we received the report or the delegation. Martin and Barb. I don't have any names in front of me, but gentlemen, come on forward. Floor is yours.
Good morning. Thanks for having us here today, and Barbara, nice to see you again. We are here representing 2 projects, Mount Forest Energy 1 and Mount Forest Energy 2. My name is John Wilmert. I am with CCL Infrastructure. We are the owners and operators of the solar farm just up the road here. Kind of my day-to-day is overseeing the operations and the site teams that are there. And I am serving as the community liaison for this project. The purpose of us being here today is to present for information to council our proposed projects with the ultimate goal of receiving a municipal council support resolution. So behind me, we've got Jason Woods. He's also with CCL Infrastructure. We've got Darcy Snyder. He's with Hatch. He's one of our engineering, permitting and environmental consultants. And on the line, we have Ryan and Michelle, and they are with our engineering, design, and health and safety team. So I know we had a presentation that we were hoping to run through. I don't know how familiar the council is with the projects as of yet. Kind of our intention was to run through our presentation that we did at the community meeting last Monday at the Optimist Club, field any questions, and then hopefully at the next meeting, we're in a position, as long as council is satisfied with the proposals, to make a motion or whatever the proper term is to get that support resolution up for signature.
Well, certainly we can entertain the presentation today, although it'll take someone far more tech savvy than me to make that happen, but I'm sure we can.
I know it was in the agenda. I saw online. I think
there's a lot of information online actually, or on the agenda.
Yeah, under the 6.3, I think it drops down and there are the presentations. So what we've submitted to council to kind of kick off the resolution process was just a bit of an introduction about who we are. As mentioned, we're with CCL, the owners and operators of the Southgate Solar Project, and the proponent, which is Southgate or Mount Forest Energy 1 and 2 LP, is a kind of a partnership between CCL Infrastructure, Carbon Free Technology, who was a part of the development team for the solar project, and also Invenergy, who's bringing a lot of the engineering design expertise to the table here. And what you see here that we have on the screen now is the meeting agenda and presentation for the Mount Forest Energy 2 project. The presentations are essentially the same between the two. The only difference is just the details around the sizing and slight locational differences between the project 1 and project 2. So what I think I'll do is hand this over to Darcy to kind of act as MC to run through this. And I think between Darcy and Jason, they'll talk through the various, the history, why this project is being proposed, why here, and kind of the process around what kind of next steps are.
Very good.
Awesome. Thank you for hosting us. So as John said, this is the meeting that we gave to the public last Monday. So the purpose of the meeting was to share information about the project, about the proponent, and open a question and answer period to give the public an opportunity to provide any comments that they had and for us to provide responses to those. So moving on to the next slide, we introduced the team. We went through the ISO RFP process, gave an overview of the technology of the batteries that are being proposed, went through the site specific information for Mount Forest Energy 1 and 2. We went through the environmental site conditions at each site. We went through the next steps, the project timeline, and then opened up that question and answer period. So first we introduced Mount Forest Energy 1 and 2 LP. As John had said, it's a partnership between 3 different partners, CCNL, CFT, which is Carbon Free Technologies, and Invenergy. Together, these partners have developed, financed, and built a number of renewable energy projects here in Ontario and internationally as well. The project representatives there, so we had representatives from each of those 3 partners, from CCNL, CFT, and Invenergy, as well as myself and my colleague Kathleen Vukovic from Hatch Consultants. So the project is being developed in response to ISO's long-term request for proposal. The ISO operates our grid and has put out a request in response to future energy needs to procure more than 2,500 megawatts of capacity services. 1,600 megawatts of those will be for energy storage. I think it's important to note here that the project is being put forth in response to the RFP, and we are following the requirements of the RFP closely. So of note for council here is there are requirements for notification of adjacent landowners and requirement for a public meeting, which we had. There's also a requirement for municipal support resolution, which is what we're seeking today. Hand it over to Jason here for technology overview.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Darcy. And thanks for welcoming us today, Mayor and Council. Good to see you again, Barb. So at a high level, a battery energy storage system might seem like a new concept to this group, since you're likely familiar with the solar farm in the area, but this is a bit different. At a high level, the battery system is and its equipment is connected into the grid vis-a-vis a project substation, much like we would interconnect a solar farm or wind farm, and would charge at night and discharge when needed or when called upon during the day. This diagram here is just kind of emblematic of that. There are other factors into the grid inputs such as solar, wind, natural gas plants. The battery is not coupled directly to those sources. It's coupled directly to the grid and will draw energy from the various other sources that are producing at the time. That power is then, bulk transmitted across the province and then, disseminated amongst loads and consumers such as houses, factories, and so on and so forth. So some of the benefits of battery energy storage systems, it increases operational flexibility, kind of integrates. I like to call this kind of allowing for the proliferation of other renewable energy technologies. Solar and wind have proven to be kind of non-flexible resources. They're subject to Mother Nature. If the sun shines, the wind blows. And so when those loads aren't available and there's a need, the battery system can fill that need. We're not creating electrons, we're simply displacing the flow of electrons. So we charge when energy is not needed, i.e. at night, and then we discharge when there's a gap, right? When the wind's not blowing, the sun's not shining, and there's a peak load in the province, rather than calling on natural gas plants to produce that power or other forms of base load, the battery will be available to do that. In that sense, it has peaking capacity features, which can be, as I mentioned, can be used during short-term spikes, which is otherwise filled currently with the likes of natural gas. And this peaking capacity is almost instantaneous, whereas a natural gas generator takes, 8 to 15 minutes to ramp up to speed to properly displace its energy. Under certain circumstances, it can maximize renewable energy resource by reducing the amount of curtailment. And that's technically not the way this battery is hooked up or intended to be, but in certain circumstances, when solar is there's lots of sun, but there's not a lot of need for load, rather than curtailing or telling the solar to produce less, the battery could be used to displace that energy and kind of soak up excess capacity. And then finally, it improves grid resilience, right? A battery is essentially, as it sounds, it's a battery. And so when the grid is not reliable with other generators, the battery is a form of kind of backup power. So one of the key elements and key features of battery energy storage system is safety and the safe operation. Some of the features that we propose on our system and on all systems, quite frankly, is to equip it with a battery management system, which constantly monitors the key safety features. And it has automatic operation and can shut down the battery, like without human intervention if it detects something beyond a threshold. We would deploy a regular maintenance program, which includes, again, monitoring, maintenance. There's annual maintenance on electrical systems typically, and there's no difference as it relates to a battery system versus another technology. There's central alarms, so battery system is going to be monitored 24/7 through a control center, and that control center can dispatch site inspections and site work and notify first and local responders. As I mentioned before, there's detection systems such as smoke detectors, heat and gas detectors, and obviously site CCTV for vandalism, theft, and proper operation. These systems are built in enclosures and kind of controlled environments, so they're containerized solutions and they get just dropped in place. Those controllers or those enclosures are designed to control the internal temperature and proper venting of gases and venting of gases in emergency situations. And then finally, the project would have an emergency response plan. We've already reached out to the local fire department to kind of start that collaboration process. But in all cases, the response plan would include kind of who to call, when to call, and so on and so forth. So some of the specific advantages, we were proposing to use LFP batteries, lithium iron phosphates. They are more chemically stable, reducing the risk of thermal runaway compared to nickel manganese cobalt batteries. So LFP is kind of the newer form of battery. It's non-toxic and environmentally friendly. And in terms of thermal management, liquid cooling is utilized, which improves not only just the cooling, but also the noise, because it reduces the amount of ventilation, like fans. And finally, BESS systems they don't emit greenhouse gases or pollutants, and very quiet compared to some other technologies. And just some high level nameplate or some high level kind of features. The nameplate capacity we're proposing is 229 for project 2, and it's 114, I believe, for project 1. And the expected energy capacities for project 2 is 800 megawatt hours, and project 1 is 400 megawatt hours. So the simple math is 200 megawatts times 4 hours and 100 megawatts times 4 hours. The overbuild is there just to facilitate other extraneous loads. It's intended to interconnect with the existing Hydro One transmission network at a voltage of 230,000 volts, which is the same as the solar farm. And the technology is, as I mentioned, LFP batteries. And there's you.
Sure, yeah, so you can see the, maybe you can't really see on the slide, sorry, but yeah, if you zoom in a bit there, on the left side of the screen is where the batteries will actually be, and there's a small hashed area in that green field, and that's, yeah, that's where we're looking to put in batteries. And then if you move up on the right there, yeah, that's where we're going to have a substation to have the electrical equipment and connecting to the grid.
And that's, sorry, that's project 2. Project 1 is Johnny. Project 1 would be right across the street, kind of right in this area right there. And the substation would be located in the same area, adjacent to that hashed area.
Yeah, and those hashed areas combined, I think we were saying, is it 15 acres? Approximately?
Together, you know, that it's subject to. Oh, yeah, sorry. Yeah, so in terms of acreage, it's still kind of subject to final design and everything, but roughly speaking, project 2 would be 25 acres between the two properties, and that would include the substation. And project 1, the 100 megawatts would be about 10 acres, including land on both properties. But hopefully that answers the question.
I think project.
Yeah, sorry, this project component wise, so this is a rendering of what a system could look like. As you can see, the containers resemble kind of shipping containers. We still haven't picked a manufacturer or a final design yet, but typically speaking, these are about 20-foot shipping containers, about the same height as a shipping container. Has ancillary gear such as inverter containers that you see kind of off the back. You know, the BMS system that I discussed is housed physically within the shipping containers. And then the projects would have a project substation that resembles, I mean, you can kind of loosely see in the background what a substation looks like, but the substations for these projects would be smaller than what you see in that picture there, which consists of a high voltage transformer and all the protection and control. Sorry. Oh, sorry. It's too tall for there we go. So yeah, the substations would resemble something similar to the solar substation if you've ever seen that one up there.
Thanks. In terms of environmental site conditions, so the project will be set back from any sensitive environmental features that can include sensitive noise receptors such as residential land uses, conservation authority regulated areas, as well as water bodies, woodlands, and wetlands. There'll be a number of studies that will be undertaken. The ones of note here for you guys is the preparation of a stormwater management plan and then the receipt of an ECA from the Ministry of the Environment. We'll go through the duty to consult process with the Indigenous groups. We'll go through preparation of an acoustic assessment report and approval of noise impacts through an air emissions easier, again, through the Ministry of the Environment. We'll go through detailed design and there will be a zoning bylaw amendment required. In terms of timeline, we're quite early on in the process right now. We had the public meeting last week and we will be putting through a proposal into the ISO in December of this year. We anticipate the next June, the ISO will inform the winners of who will be awarded contracts for the projects to move forward. And at that point, we would go through more of the design, the duty to consult and the permitting processes. That would allow us to begin construction in 2025 and operation in 2027. That's all the information we shared. We then had a question and answer period during the public meeting, and we have minutes of that meeting, including any of the concerns that the public raised here as well. So I think that wraps up what we're going through here.
Yeah. Thanks, Darcy. So yeah, that's what we presented at the meeting. We're doing the same here as for information. Wanted to give the council the opportunity to ask any questions that they may have at this point. Certainly available at any time to ask or answer additional follow-up questions. And then ideally, I believe on the next meeting, if there's no other concerns or questions raised, we would like to get on the agenda the Municipal Support Council resolution for approval. And the ISO has provided kind of a form to help with the administrative burden that's included with that, to make sure that that's in a form that meets the requirements of the proposal. So that's where we are. Are there any questions at this time in terms of, well, anything really?
Just, and thank you very much, gentlemen, for the presentation. Are you allowed to disclose the landowners?
Well, I mean, yes, I mean, it's clearly marked there. It's
we wouldn't disclose the names of the landowners. You could likely deduce that from the project locations. And we do have agreements with the landowners, land lease agreements with each landowner.
Okay.
Or sorry, we are working on land lease agreements.
So I'm going to declare a pecuniary interest as my son works for that company. So I'll recuse myself from the chair. Madam Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. All right. Are there any questions from council? Martin.
Thank you.
Jason.
Thank you. Having a brief chat with Jason this morning. I apologize that I couldn't be there. It was family things. I did take the time to read all, especially the questions from the public. And most of my questions were answered. There are still a few little things to tweak those answers. I actually ended up reading a report from the fire department, Toronto Fire Department, and lithium ion batteries. The headline, they're twice as many. There's 56 cases instead of 22 for 2022. But they're all small lithium ion batteries for mobility or the e-scooters, and they never really took on the fact that a lot of the batteries were being not used properly or adjusted, so overcharged. Like there's no chance in heaven that these won't be like that. But if there was a fire, do you have any stats of how many incidents? And if so, you mentioned an agreement with the fire department. Would they have to have any special training or equipment? Because I looked at it, there was venting off gases and stuff like that. And, you know, we all know if you charge just a regular automotive battery, they can blow up too. So in addition with that, they are self-contained units, but they are all connected. If one kind of blew up, would that be a domino effect to all the other ones around? Maybe that's a techie question. I don't know.
So I'm going to defer to the tech team, but what I would say is, I hear your point on e-scooters and things like that. These systems are monitored 24/7. They have checks and balances installed where you know, other technologies like e-scooters rely on you know, humans to operate responsibly. This has added features of like safety elements built into the system, but maybe I'll defer to my team online who can address kind of fire related stats and how we would respond to a fire incident.
Certainly. Good morning, all. So while I don't have a specific statistic off the top of my head, I will note that all of those instances of e-scooters, cell phone batteries, and so on, those use a different type of lithium-ion battery, an NMC, as opposed to LFP. So LFP, lithium iron phosphate batteries, are inherently safer. And so we are seeing a lot fewer such instances, even in the cases of misuse. So these numbers are really quite small. I believe another question here was whether, you know, there's any specific training or any kind of like supplies and such necessary in order to combat any potential events that might occur. All of the necessary, you know, techniques and mitigants would be a combination of tools and techniques that any fire department would already have. And you know, we in our projects have had practice training firefighters and fire departments to address for any kind of situations that might come up. And if necessary, we have supplied gas detectors if needed, but really there's nothing particularly special. And as part of our design, we develop an emergency response plan that we would be providing to the community that will coach exactly what personal protective equipment is needed and what exactly would need to be done. In terms of propagation from one enclosure of batteries to another, these are designed, not only do we monitor systems, we also make sure that we really try to design so that one system, if it does, you know, experience a thermal event, that we, you know, our philosophy is to let it burn. So that one burns, and then we design so that that one alone is what burns and nothing else propagates. So batteries themselves are pretty insulated, but we also have physical distancing between every single enclosure, so that everything can be prevented. And we could recommend like light use of water to cool down adjacent containers if necessary, but there's no need to like actively fight a fire in that case. We really focus on, you know, assets not being worth lives. And I'll pass it over to my colleague if he has anything else to add.
Thanks, Michelle. Hi, I'm Ryan Green. I'm with Invenergy. And when Invenergy selects battery technology, we thoroughly vet all of our providers, and important to the process is to conform to safety studies and specifically UL 9540A, which specifically tests the propagation not only just within the cell level, but also within the module level and the unit level. So we all of our designs are thoroughly backed by rigorous testing, empirical testing, that the propagation will not occur. Yeah, Michelle touched on it. Great.
You good, Martin?
One more, and then I do have another one, but I'll give time
yes,
to
thank
go
you.
around. Yeah, no worries. The other one out of
Got you, Joan.
the other one out of all the questions, it mentioned that you're part of you were involved with the solar. And you did say, this is going into the future, you did say you don't produce electricity, you give out to the grid. There is a solar fund from the Southgate Solar Fund. With any energy issued forth at night, would there be some kind of corporate compensation like that? And what was the other question? Oh, and so many times you see people doing green energy projects. You see, I did go online to all your different websites, and you've been around, but there is no chance that this will be changed hands in the future because of the newer type of technology. Like you're investing in the community, basically, I'm saying, without selling off to another bigger, greener.
Yeah, so there's two questions there, and
Yeah, sorry.
I'll address the first one. You are correct. There is a benefit agreement in place between Southgate Solar and the township. We anticipate a similar type of arrangement as we move through the process. It's something that gets developed kind of later on in the stage. As you can appreciate, we haven't even submitted a bid to the ISO yet, so there's not a tangible project. And so we could have a result of 0 projects, we could have a result of 2 projects. In almost every case of Connor, Clark and Lunn and projects that we've built in the communities, we've invested back into those communities and truly consider them as a partner. To your second question, I can't say with certainty that assets won't trade hands. What I can say is Connor, Clark and Lunn is not a closed-ended fund. It's an open-ended fund, which means we are a long-term holder of assets. We strive to own assets for the life of the asset, without retrading it. We wouldn't intend to change our strategy here. But I couldn't guarantee that it would never retrade. The contract period for this particular project is, depending on when you deliver it, anywhere from 20 to 22 years.
Okay.
We build that into our lease arrangements with our landowners, with the option to extend it further, should the ISO require it or need it. But keep in mind, batteries do degrade over time. And through the life of this contract, we anticipate that we'll have to supplement that battery to maintain our obligations to the IESO.
Okay, thank you. With our brief chat this morning, it was, we mentioned too bad it wasn't thought about at the time when they were doing all the wind farms, whether that was myopic thinking or the technology wasn't there, but seems to be a good project, so.
I've got Jason, then Jim, then Joan. Just wanted to let you know I got you, Joan.
I had a couple quick ones. Just first one, why 2 locations, or basically 4 locations?
So all proponents were subject to what was called the deliverability test. So you could test up to 3 scenarios on each project location, and up to 10 projects. So 10 projects, 3 scenarios per project, and that could be different sizes. So 30 iterations of project. When we looked at Southgate area and the relationships we had with the community and landowners, really kind of boiled down to two project sites that we could think of. So we could have put all, kind of gone all in on one, but we would toe test the waters and on 2 and see. And as it stood, the ISO delivered us with 2 results of deliverable but competing, which means, hey, this area is technically feasible. We need the capacity. Your projects aren't too big that it tips over a capacity threshold, but there are others who are also vying for the same capacity. Maybe not in Southgate, but maybe in the area.
Quick follow. I guess from this time in environmental talk and everything, I noted when you were mentioning you looked into wetlands and residential properties, but we never mentioned ag land, and it looks to me like that's on prime ag land. So I guess I just wanted to kind of put that out there. We always talk about that, but and then maybe this is to, I don't know who, will it be commercial taxes on that property? Then on those properties?
So it's up to kind of the municipality, but I believe through rezoning, it'll be rezoned to industrial. So the rate will increase correspondingly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Jim?
Okay, I have 2 questions. Lifespan of the batteries, and what is the ability to recycle them when they're done?
So and I'm going to defer maybe to Reza on this one, but I'll just quickly say, out of the box, I think we believe these to be 20-year batteries. But at the end of that 20-year, the capacity is not 0. It's something in the realm of about 60%. So maybe Reza or Michelle or Ryan, you can add something.
Certainly. So yes, our batteries are expected to have a 20-year lifetime, but at the end of that lifetime, they might still be viable as batteries with some, lower state of health, as in they can charge a little less, kind of like how, on your phone after 5 years, it might not last throughout the whole day after some time. So same kind of thing with these batteries after 20 years. So they, could be potentially, have some kind of value, be used in some other application when it's taken off the site. And in terms of recycling, there are lithium-ion battery recycling technologies that exist right now. And there's a huge push currently to developing and making those technologies better. So I would expect by 20 years from now, at the end of this kind of asset life, that those technologies would be fully developed. And so they could be recycled more effectively. Even more effectively. They can already be recycled.
Yeah. And second question, with the issue of fires from them, I know you had brought up like cell phones and the scooters and that, but I've seen a lot of where the cars, so with cars catching fires, and the fire is a completely different. You can't fight it with water and that. I believe they're into using like special blankets and that to help smother out the fires and that. I know you had said we'd go with the let it burn, but what if we're in a dry season and that, which has been happening, fire bans and that? My question would be, yeah, you buy stuff for the car, but these are a lot bigger than a car. Who's gonna, if we need the equipment, who's going to supply the equipment for our fire department to fight these fires?
So I think I'd say, based on kind of Michelle's earlier comment, it's not any specialized equipment that your fire department doesn't already likely have. If there was a need there, we would have to, understand that and assess it. But the response is one of containment, more or less. Like that's that container. If it is involved in an event, you would contain it and make sure it does not spread. So if it was a dry season, and most of the combustible material in a battery plant is non-combustible, really. It's not like a solar farm or wind farm where you have fields around it. So the footprint, while small, is usually covered in aggregate and the enclosures themselves, rather than kind of sitting in a field, if you would. So you could keep a perimeter. You could keep a perimeter pretty. I would say pretty easily.
Just be like if it's a windy day or something, it doesn't take much to carry it on. No, it's just, that was my big concern, because like it's a completely different type of firefighting than what, so it'd be who's going to cover the cost, because a car compared to, what was it, 20-foot container size usually.
It's
30 foot, is a lot different than, and like I've just videos I've seen, and it's like Teslas and all different brands of cars, and I'd assume that's kind of, they're using the newer battery lithium technologies on those, and there has been a rash of fires, just not charging, just driving down the road, accidents. And
and I'd say that's hence the reach out to the fire department. We're super early. We're planning on delivering the project in like 2027, 2028 timeframe. Lots of wood to chop between now and then. And part of that is formulating how we develop that emergency response.
Thanks.
So before I go to Joan, on Monday, you mentioned that, and I may have misunderstood, that each container has its own built-in fire suppression.
So each container, I want to be careful here because we haven't designed it. Some systems do have fire suppression in each container. It's not a mandatory requirement, but in some systems, some manufacturers, it is available.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Joan?
Thank you. Through the chair, I will agree with Councillor Shipson that there are a lot of information here. I don't understand all of it, and that there's some things that I would have to read again. Also, Councillor Rice got one of my questions, relocation, because I was thinking you have one location here and one location there. So I was kind of asking a question on that too. And also I am thinking, is this another 25 or 35 acres out of farmland, which is prime agricultural farmland? And you spoke about the control center. Where will that be? And I know these require regular maintenance, including monitoring the battery charge level and ensure that the system is functioning properly. So you talk about all the advantages and stuff like that. Could you tell us some of the disadvantages? I know it's a long way off, but these are just some information that I think we could know, that you could clarify their advantages and disadvantages. Thank you.
Yeah, so maybe I'll address the prime farmland piece first. I agree, right? It is on prime farmland, and the question is why, right? And a large piece of that answer is proximity to transmission lines. and leveraging relationships that we already have in place. What I would say is the ISO they have a specific need, right? And the way that they are currently intending to address that need is they've targeted battery energy storage systems. The alternative to that is new generation, which is much more sprawling, right? Solar or wind or natural gas. So, while we acknowledge it is going on some farmland that could be otherwise utilized, it is a small footprint, right? We're talking 10 acres or 10 or 15 acres for the one and 25 for the other, in totality. And that's probably a safe estimate now because we haven't done design. At the end of life of these systems, the land will be restored, right? Like we're not digging a massive crater to install these. In a lot of cases, these are slab on grade, which is concrete pad, in trenched cable systems, right? So it's not entirely difficult to take out. So there is an end of life plan here, but that may or may not materialize depending on the need from the ISO at the time. And sorry, and there was a question about disadvantages, and it's an interesting question. I've not been asked that before. I would say, as a developer, I wouldn't say that we see a lot of disadvantage to a system like this, other than all the technical disadvantages that we need to tackle in our design, right? It degrades over time, so you have to factor in new batteries, and there's challenges with trying to think that far out ahead and incorporate it into a design today. I fully understand and acknowledge that the disadvantages conceptually that may be seen by folks in the community, such as taking up prime farmland. Again, the intent would be to work with the community to kind of offset those types of challenges. And we've demonstrated that with our current relationship with Southgate.
So I would hazard a guess that most of the disadvantages that might come up is the visual impact on neighboring residents who don't benefit from this project at all and have to live with the construction and everything like that. I'm going to ask Monica if she has any questions before I start another round with Martin.
No, but thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Okay, Martin.
Sorry, if I could just address that visual sighting. I think what I said at the meeting, for those that weren't there, was, I think it's incumbent on the community to bring forward those concerns to the council and to the council. And then it's incumbent on us to work with the council on the solutions to those concerns, right? When we work to the ISO process to target specific landowners to notify them of the community meeting. We didn't cast a wide net because that was targeted at people that we knew would likely be challenged with the project, and we listened. We expect that there's going to be concerns brought forward, and we expect, like we did at Southgate Solar, to have requirements to building the system, whether it's visual requirements or otherwise.
Thank you. Martin.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm only going to comment on comments that were at the both meetings, and going along with what Barb has said, the visual impact for some people, it's not liked. And I had to smile when I read everything, when you mentioned probably from Asia, whether Philippines, China, Malaysia, that's where the parts are going to be coming from, conductors, whatever. I found it funny that this green initiative is using the worst kind of shipment to get the things over here. As far as I know, freighters and cargo ships have not stopped using bunker oil, which is basically oil right out of the ground. So the idea of that, and this is long-term for your environment, I think it's a valid concern that was brought up at the meeting. And I think it should be looked at where you should plant buffer of trees around what you're doing to compensate what you use in carbon coming over here. And hopefully to keep it aesthetically pleasing, to not just put up cedars and pine trees, but actually take some of the trees that, the species that are around the woodland on this Agawam farming and do that. That's far down the road, but that will certainly curtail any backlash from.
Sure.
So that was just a comment to put in the books for later.
Yeah, and for folks that aren't fully aware of kind of the permitting regime that goes into something like this, there's lots of studies that are done, and we haven't performed those studies, but the resultant of some of those studies could be that we need to, if we're going to change or alter habitat here, we may need to create or preserve habitat somewhere else, right? So like folks may or may not be aware that Southgate Solar has bobolinks habitat that we maintain off the project site for that specific reason, right? And that's par for the course when it comes to these types of projects. There's certainly, you know, if there are requirements that come vis-a-vis the permitting, we'll be lock and step.
Okay, so are there any other questions from council at this time? I had a couple, and one of the questions was the 2 letters that we did receive that were circulated to council, will they be added or as part of the public record? It's not a public meeting, so that's why I'm asking.
I would say no, because they didn't come to council. That's normally how
Right.
they would become part of the council minute record, would be to speak at council. They did decline to speak at council.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I can get their permission maybe to share with these gentlemen,
might
just
be
so
a-
they're aware.
That would probably
Yeah.
be beneficial, I think, for them to have that correspondence if the
Yeah. I would ask
writers
them.
are acceptable to that. A couple of things that have been touched on is where you're sourcing the materials for building these 30 on one property, 30 sea containers on one property and upwards of 60 sea
Yeah,
containers
so
on another.
I'm sorry. I think I was probably not entirely clear at the meeting. It's more containers. The site area is the same, but the quantity of containers. When I referenced it at the meeting, I said 30 for 100 megawatt hours. It's actually, so for 100 megawatts, 400 megawatt hours, it's about 120, but it's the same project area. Yeah, I know.
So you
I
just went
realized that
from
after.
30 sea containers to 120 sea
It's
containers?
100, yeah, it's about 120. When we think of energy, or battery energy storage systems, there's capacity and then there's runtime, right? So when I said 100 megawatts is 30 containers, that was for 100 megawatt hours, not for
400.
400, yeah.
So on one property, there
Yeah.
could be upwards of 120 sea
Yeah,
containers.
yeah.
Just making sure that everybody is aware. You also mentioned on Monday that the smaller parcel was upwards of 15 acres and the larger one 25 to 30 acres. And today you mentioned 10 acres and 20 to 25.
Yeah, so I don't have the physical design here. I'm not sure, John.
Mhm.
We can get those specific details.
Clarity is important.
Yeah, I know. What we communicated at the meeting was the correct acreage
Okay, so upwards of 40 to 45 in total.
for 2 projects. Yeah.
Okay, for 2 projects. The carbon footprint, and of course, the mining practices of getting the materials are less than desirable in other countries. So that was raised at the public meeting. To Councillor Shipston's point about the community fund contribution, that in the past for the solar fund was negotiated prior to the willing host resolution. So the resolution of support was not signed right away. It took a fair amount of negotiating so that we understood the expectation and we had input from the public. There is another project that was advertised in the paper out Hanover West Gray area. I wonder why Mount Forest Energy, being in Southgate, you didn't go above and beyond the RFP requirements to circulate to only those neighboring property owners. And then we did receive it on a council agenda, but a lot of people overlooked it because of the name. So I just would like to pose that question. Are you prepared to make it a true public meeting, advertise in the papers, on social media, so that people are aware that this project is being considered, so that council can then address a municipal support letter at some point in the future? And I guess the second part of that is, what is your deadline for RFP? For what kind of time frame do we have?
So the ISO, so I guess I'll speak to the first point. The ISO has a specific process that we were directed to follow. I get your point. We could have done more in terms of advertising. I think the strategy was to target the immediate adjacent landowners, so we could hear those voices instead of getting a lot of noise and losing those voices. So that's step one, right? And we don't think that this is going to be a conversation that ends here. But to your point, on your second part, there is a requirement for municipal support, and that requirement forms a part of our bid, which is December 12th. So when you say before, I appreciate that before the solar got support before and everything was negotiated up front, it was a different process. The ISO has not been really giving us a lot of time, quite frankly, to work and kind of do all of this. It would be difficult for us to advertise and get another kind of battery of meetings in advance of a resolution.
Pun intended?
Yeah.
Battery of meetings. So I guess I noticed in the presentation that it said a resolution of support no earlier than February 2023. So this has been ongoing for 8 months. And so we're just hearing about it now with a deadline of December 12th for you to submit your RFP.
Yeah, so there was the expedited long-term RFP process that happened before this, and they didn't want the same projects, the same consultation that happened for that RFP process to then be put forward again here.
Okay.
So that's why they didn't want us to get mixed up with that previous one.
Okay. Well, thank you. If there are no other questions from council at this time, point of procedure, I was the seconder on that to receive. Is that okay as the chair?
If I could before, just to add through you, Deputy Mayor, pardon me. I've been speaking with the proponents, so I didn't feel that I should bring a support resolution to this meeting. I thought council would want to hear it for information first, but I did commit to them that I would bring back a report at the next meeting for a decision from council. So there doesn't need to be an amendment or anything like that for today. This was just for information, and I will bring back a report and then council can vote. So that would still be within their timeframes. So I will bring that forward. And then that's when council can make their decision. But I just didn't feel that you would want that in front of you today with no prior information.
Thank you very much for that. And is there a possibility to share this information, I guess, through our council highlights, to highlight that this project is indeed in Southgate and that the next meeting will consider a municipal support resolution, so that we have that opportunity to hear from other residents that may not have shown up at the meeting on Monday. And it's okay for me to remain a seconder. Okay. So right before us, we have, be it resolved that council receive the Mount Forest Energy proposed battery energy storage system presentation for information, and the understanding that a report will be coming back on November 15th. Any other questions? All in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. Thank you very much.
Great. No, thank you for having us today, and look
Thank
forward
you.
to working with you guys.
Take care. I'll turn it back over to our mayor, Brian Milne, and perhaps we could have a little break.
Yeah, yeah. You go ahead. All right, we'll bring the meeting back to order. The next item is the adoption of the minutes of the October 18th council and closed session meetings as presented. Someone move that, Jim? Jason? Any discussion? All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Reports of municipal officers. We'll start with the clerk, Lindsay Green. First is a report regarding multi-year accessibility plan. Someone care to move that? Joan? Thank you. Martin? Lindsay?
Through you, Mayor Milne. Our multi-year accessibility plan needed updated. So Holly has done all the updates, and we are a member of the Grey County Joint Accessibility Advisory Committee. So she did go to their last meeting and presented it to them, and they were quite happy with it and didn't have any comments. So now just bringing to council for approval.
Excellent. Thank you, Lindsay. Any questions? Barb?
No question, Chair Milne. I just wanted to comment that it was nice to see that the committee considered your staff's report well-written and comprehensive plan. So congratulations to our staff.
Indeed. Anyone else? Martin?
Yeah, that's congratulations. I will say that. The IASR, I hate anagrams. This is just for public buildings. Is there any way this could be put out there to private buildings, especially like Dundalk on the west side? You know, they have that. It is just for public, right? So, because it's maybe a touchy subject.
That would be maybe better to speak to that than me from.
Other than
Yeah,
that,
this
it was
is
good to
public.
see the good
Yeah,
report.
yeah. I don't know how we would regulate that privately. Accessibility. Yeah.
Bev?
Through the chair. Walked in on that late. Currently, there is legislation that all buildings, public storefronts, everything shall be accessible by 2025.
Right.
I'm not sure how it is going to be regulated at this point, but storefronts are supposed to be accessible from the front by 2025.
Yeah.
Follow up if I may. And
Martin?
Yep, and I do remember that. Thank you for answering that, because in that initial prototype for the reworking of Dundalk, there was some issue about doing ramps for the west side. So
Through the chair, I think you're maybe referring to the community or the community improvement plan. Yeah, that there is components in that, but it's privately owned, so it's still up to the owner to initiate that. Yeah.
Anyway, thanks. Greg.
Yeah, this is just public. Yeah. Thanks. Well, it was Holly, so thanks to Holly.
Monica?
Oh, yes, thank you. Through you, Chair. I'm pleased to see this accessibility plan presented. It's a significant step to enhancing the quality of life for our members in our community. Just to the points that were just mentioned regarding monitoring and evaluation, what metrics or benchmarks will be used to assess the plan's effectiveness over time, and how will the results be reported to the community?
Through
Madam
the
Clerk?
chair. Thank you. So there is follow-up reports that we do yearly, so they would be prepared and presented and available on our website and put out that way. It's kind of just a benchmark document for staff to follow, redesign new spaces, that sort of thing. And that's what we follow for accessibility when we're taking into consideration new projects or redesigns.
Just a follow-up.
Yep, go ahead.
And so just from the point of being on the SMART committee, of course, that's one of the areas that I would love to see how this will evolve, and just take a look at if that's something that's already been looked at in the, initial benchmark report? Or is that something that's, I guess as we continue to go along, we'll be able to find out how possibly the SMART committee could be more involved in seeing where this goes?
Through the chair. So as far as Southgate is concerned, we don't have our own public transportation, so it doesn't, I think there's a small section just speaking to that. The county takes on a big role of that through their, I'm drawing a blank, the GTR,
Yeah.
the name of
Great
it.
transit.
Great transit route. But yes, SMART, I mean, they do service Southgate, obviously, but that we don't really speak to the transportation standard because we don't operate public transportation.
Yeah. Okay. But at least I think this is a good moment to see where things will go, and maybe as we grow, that might be something to look at in the future. But thanks so much. It's a great report. So happy to read it.
Thanks.
Thank you. Barb?
Understanding that this applies to public facilities and to our chief building officials' comments about public commercial buildings being required to meet the same 2025 deadline. Do you anticipate there being more and more buildings becoming vacant, and I hesitate using the word derelict, but because there are some buildings in our communities that would be hard pressed to become fully accessible from the front, given their elevation from the street, without taking up 80% of their real estate?
I'm going to.
I'm kind of off.
We're straying off here. The debate is about the report, not about the state of accessibility in Dundalk specifically. But Bev, if you want an opportunity, do you want to respond or no? Okay, thank you. Fair enough. Yep, you did. Any other questions related to the report? I'll call the question. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much. Next report is again from the Clerk's Department regarding Council Member 2024 conference attendance approval. Mover. Martin, Monica. Lindsay, please.
Thank you, Mayor Milne. So this is kind of a process we followed last year to ask members for their which conferences they wanted to attend in advance, just so we could try to put together some costs and then bring it back to council for consideration. You can see on attachment 1, it's quite a lot of money, a couple thousand more than we estimated for last year. And the costs, a lot of them are estimates right at this point. Some of the information for some of the conferences isn't out yet. So we just try to make a best guess on hotel, travel, that sort of thing. So this is what we've come up with for financial implications. And I guess we're just looking for council's direction moving forward. Is this, are we going to go ahead with everything that everyone wants here, or scale it back, or what?
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And I guess for just a little clarification from the chair, as this is presented here, this meets our current policy, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So just bearing that in mind. Martin, your microphone's on. Do you have a question?
Yeah, I was kind of put back with the price tag, quite frankly. We haven't looked at the budget yet, but at 41,000, that could be potentially 1/3 of 1% of the levy, couldn't it? Like 120,000, whatever. So it got me thinking about the conferences and what have you. And I only mentioned it to you and Holly about the FCM because, quite frankly, I was planning a holiday out there. I killed 2 birds with one stone. In the original report, FCM wasn't mentioned. So if there's any, there could be 2 or 3 talking points of what I've got to say that we could talk about. But with that one being the most expensive, and air flights, and it's going to be constantly that moving all over, could the policy, as Brian said, it's going to policy. Could we change that to make that, if you go to that, then you don't go to the other other two that's there. Like, it's just a talking point. Because it is a large thing, expense. So
Yeah.
another point, maybe in that same frame, I did put myself down for Algra, which maybe it was referred to me by someone that could be more of a staff instead of a council conference. So there's 3 going, and I believe at the beginning of the year there were 5 people going. Is a talking point? Could you limit 2 counselors to each conference? That way, more bang for your buck. The counselors going to more conferences. I tend to agree with Jason. We are using public money, and he's not put any in. But then again, on the flip side, there is information to be brought back, and having a chat with Dean. It's not just always hard data. Like, I can remember talking to a counselor from up north, and he says, "Oh, we've had that same problem up here." Well, how did you fix it? There's that kind of information that you can't get from data. So conferences are important. So maybe that's just a couple of points to maybe bring up. I don't know.
Yeah, if I
It
can.
got me
through the-
thinking anyway.
Through the chair. I mean, staff have the policy as it is right now, so I think we're looking for a decision today that if say council wanted to limit it to, I don't know, one conference each, or only one attending one each, or that's kind of the decision we're looking for today. Just out because right now it would be permitted inside the policy, and for lack of or for interest of time, I don't think it would be feasible for me to amend the policy and do all that before when we're trying to budget accordingly. So I think we need a decision today if that's what council's going for, and then look to the policy in the future. Yeah.
So I guess just another clarification, you're looking for approval to include this in the budget deliberations? Or you're looking for us to approve as it is?
I think we need approval so that we can book certain things, because that's the problem. These
Okay.
come up and we need to book. In the past, we've
Okay.
gotten approval for you guys to attend, and then it just automatically goes into the budget.
Right, okay, all right. So with that clarity, Jason.
Just wondering, Lindsay, if you have a number. So we got 40,000 for council. Is it 30,000 for staff? 40? Do you have a rough idea? Because that'd be something I'd like to know.
I don't have the number.
And not going off
yeah.
Martin's, I put in for none. I get there's, you do make some connections. I've been to a couple of them now, and I don't know. I know it's good to get other information. Well, there's a lot of information on the internet nowadays. It's more of a how you doing, and it goes back to me wanting to save the taxpayers money. But if we got 40,000 in council, we got 30 or 40,000 in staff. Yeah, man, I'd like to see what the actual you've learned at one of those conferences that really came back. It's a networking thing. I think it would come right down to, but that's just my opinion. And the way everything is now, I just did not feel comfortable 3, 4, or 5,000 going to that on the taxpayers' dime. And I wonder if you could get that number, because I mean, to me, if we got that many staff going, do we really need that much council going too? I don't know.
Dina?
I think the intent wasn't to bring this report forward to limit council on what they want to do. I think every council member would know how they wish to proceed as far as what they would like to attend. I think the conferences are very valuable. And sometimes you learn by going to each one and saying that one's not for me. As I did, likely I won't go to Good Roads, because I found that I've done it once. I've connected with the people I need to connect to with that particular conference, but there are things that we advocate for at some of these conferences, particularly Roma and AMO, where we are meeting with ministers, where we're putting our foot forward as far as what we want. We do delegations, we connect with the right people. So I don't want to say that staff are trying to limit council on their conferences. That's not the intent of this motion. It's really to just bring forward and perhaps the conversation around out of province conferences. They can be a little different. So do we limit that? potentially, but the policy right now is that council members can go to 3. And I think that, if you want to change the policy, we can bring that back. But at this point, I think that the conferences are very, very valuable. And I would not, I wouldn't suggest going too far outside of the policy as it is.
Jason. Well, I wasn't suggesting that. Leave it how it is. That's just my opinion. And I was just curious how many staff are going as well. Like, if we're up 80 or 90,000, that's a big number then to me.
We can certainly bring that
Yeah.
back.
Any other discussion? Martin?
Yeah, more of a comment on something that Jason said, with going to the conferences, I guess this is about, I'm going off topic, I guess. But perhaps in the future, changing the policies. I really, really think Jason's made the decision. He doesn't want to go any, he's looking after the public purse. And I fully respect that. But if we go to a conference, we are using the public purse. I think some kind of summation, or a report should be mandatory. And we're all individuals here. We all have different ways of doing things, but that would show good faith that, yes, we went to this. This is what we brought back to the township. Anyway, besides that, they didn't have FCM. That's why I asked Holly. We've decided not to go out there in that time frame. We're going later. So as far as this report, I won't go to OGRA and I won't go to FCM. We'll just go to the Roma that you've already booked. So I think that's what you're looking for, some kind of help with the budget.
What I'm hearing is, and just to make it clear, there already is a requirement that if you go to a conference, you must fill out that conference report as an individual
No.
counselor.
It's not a requirement.
It's not a requirement?
It's advised in the policy, but it's not a requirement.
Okay, it's recommended.
Yeah.
Well, that usually means you should probably do it. The clerk's looking for it. Anyway.
Okay.
Anyway, I would suggest that individual counselors have a look at this. I'm sure everybody has had a look at it. And if you feel the number's too large, maybe reassess what you've asked to go to. And, but if you're good with what you want to go to, I agree with Dina. The conferences they are valuable, can be valuable. But if now that everybody's seen the totality of the cost, if an individual counselor feels like they don't want to contribute to the cost, then maybe pull back on the one or, whatever conference that you've asked to go to. Joan, you have a question? Go ahead.
Oh, thank you. Through the chair. Yes, I think we should definitely reassess because I will be foregoing one of mine. I think I'm only going to be choosing 2 conferences. Thank you.
All right. Madam Clerk, I'm wondering, do we need to formally in the resolution provide a timeline for counselors to review what their request has been and get back to the clerk on any revisions if there are any?
I don't think we need a formal amendment for that. Staff can email out after the meeting and give a timeline to
Okay.
get back.
All right.
So that I can, and it'll be a quick turnaround so we can bring a report back to the next meeting for
Okay.
final. So then we know for budgeting,
Okay.
if that works for everybody.
So you want to defer this to the next meeting?
We can receive it as it is right now, because
Okay.
it's just to receive
Yep.
information and provide directions. So we've had the discussion now and
That's
we'll
how
just,
we'll
we'll
proceed.
bring a report back with revised. And then at that point, we can approve or not
Sure.
approve.
Okay.
Yeah.
Everyone okay with that?
I just wanted to. make-
Monica, yeah, go ahead, Monica.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, so I just wanted to also just chime in, just taking a look at the costs and just understanding that it is essential to acknowledge the budget constraints, but the emphasis that investing in the professional development of council members can lead to a more effective governance, which in the long run can be a great benefit to the community. So we can consider reallocating funds and taking a look at maybe instead of 3, 2, or some have gone to 3 the year before, and maybe just working together, especially for the new counselors coming on. I know that some have been on board for a while. is more than just networking. I believe it is what you make it to, I think. So just learning, expanding, and all of that. So it is a part of the public funds, but they've also put us in this position to be able to become more broad and have representation. We are the fastest growing municipality, as we know, in Grey County. So just getting that out there. But I do agree that budget constraints and taking a look at that and being conservative in these things are very important. Just wanted to add that to the conversation.
Thank you, Monica. Barb?
Thank you, Chair. And I did want to just chime in about the policy allows us to attend up to 3 conferences, budget depending. So ultimately, it doesn't say we're entitled to go to 3 conferences. It says we may attend up to 3. And I would like to chime in or agree with Martin in that perhaps we need to revisit the policy in the beginning of the year. Would that be coming for, do you need direction to revisit the policy? Because we do recommend that we provide a report about what we learned, the value of the conference, even if it's just, I didn't find value, I won't be going again. That's a report. And not everyone has done that. In the county, except for the warden, I believe county councillors are only allowed to attend conferences within Ontario. I know that FCM is off the table if it's not within Ontario. And perhaps that is something that we should be considering when it comes to having to fly somewhere. It is significant. And from what I've heard at the airports, there's no guarantee you're going to get there anyway. So I have only selected one conference because I haven't been to OSUM. So I will look forward to that one. And I will, well, hopefully everyone can revisit and consider how that goes. Thank you. But they are of value for sure.
Thank you, Barb. Any other discussion? Questions? Not seeing any. I'll call the question. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much. Thank you, Lindsay. That concludes your reports. Next reports are from our Public Works Manager, Jim Ellis. The first one is the Southgate Beaver Trapping Agreement. This is always a popular discussion. Who would like to move that motion? Barb and Jim. Jim?
Good morning, good people. As the report indicates, the former CAO and treasurer at the time were in discussions with this and bringing this forward. It kind of dropped off the table and then revisited with the new treasurer and new CAO. And anyways, we've compared this with Dufferin, who have had to make a lot of changes as well because there are challenges with trapping. We've had different trappers in the past come along. Let's say take the easy ones at the side of the road, but then don't go in any further and do any work. So we've got to commend Mr. Bates for over 20 years working with the municipality on what he's done. He's lost traps at times to maybe other trappers. We know that some citizens sometimes take them and he doesn't get them back. The equipment he needs to be able to do this job. We have a very large amount of municipal drains that we have to tend to within the township. And this varies all over the place, but the one thing that we didn't do before, and I know it seems like quite a jump of price increase, but we don't pay mileage. And we've heard of stories where other municipalities with trappers, they may have 3 locations they're working on, but they say they go home each time in between. They don't do a route kind of thing. And apparently, that's a way that they're adding up the shankles that way. But anyhow, we're bringing this forward because we didn't have a formal agreement and wanted to get one in place, especially with the numbers. It varies from year to year, but you know, we've seen over 100 tails a year in the past, so, and probably on target for that this year, but just trying to get someone who's dedicated and does a good job. And you know, it's a tough battle because a year or two later, we're back at the same spot. So he works till there's no more coming into the traps. He sometimes dismantles dams on his own, pulling them apart if we can't get a machine in. A few years ago, we had to use the drone to figure things out, and Steve's now trained with the department with our drone to be able to use that information as well. So other than that, I'll just take some questions because yeah, it's a report that's been due, and long overdue to come to council.
Thank you, Jim. And yes, the critters can cause a lot of grief for our roads and drainage. I did actually read a report the other day that in the UK, they just had the first new beaver born in generations. So I'm thinking there's an outlet for some of our excess rodents. We could maybe ship them over there and they'd be happy to have them. But good luck to them if they think they want to introduce them. I often remember my father saying when he was growing up, it was quite an occasion to actually see a beaver dam because they were so scarce. So in the space of 2 generations, they've become quite a menace. Anyway, any questions? Martin, go ahead.
Yeah, well, I have to concur with that, Brian, because I've seen the damage done. And I think with, I saw that article too within England, one of the, if they're in places where there's no drainage and no municipal roads and all that kind of stuff, they actually make some of the best trout fishing. And I think that's why in England they're doing it, depending where they are. Anyway, that's besides the point. When I first looked at that, $200 for a tail and then upwards of 200, that is more than the 10,000 in the budget from this year, right? That's a lot of money because it could be potentially up in the 20,000s or 15. So that kind of made me go, oh my word. But then I thought if he's doing his job and he's keeping the population down, it shouldn't be that high. You know what I mean? There's a checks and balances, and this is what trapping is all about, isn't it? Really? So do you think a budget item for next year would be, since you were saying that it could be 100 this year, is that? It'll be more than the 10,000.
Yeah, we'll be increasing that number for sure if council approves this. And frankly, if council doesn't approve this, we'll be looking for a trapper, I guess, and we'll be hearing the phone ringing off the hook about issues and anyways, having to deal with it. But this is the solution. And again, the most comparable that we've looked at because it's been tough to get information as Dufferin's had to do something a little bit more. They've structured it a little bit differently. But I think once you add up the mileage that he's going to the same location 6 or 10 times or whatever, you're going to find it creep up to meet that 200 marks.
Follow up.
Go ahead, Martin.
Perhaps it's something that could be put on the website about beavers and the damage they do, because when you mention some citizens take them away, they don't take them away for being, they just love the little things and they don't want them to be trapped. Meanwhile, which is true, I've had that experience myself where I am. So perhaps a little bit of education could be in order.
Yeah.
Yeah, and again, like we are only trapping on municipal drains that we have to maintain. If we have to get them flowing if there's an issue. We do have some issues with property owners, especially a new turnover, that don't understand municipal drains and don't understand that we have that right to come in and maintain it. Where we are challenged sometimes and we get the calls is if it's on the river system. And it's happening on the river. We don't really, if it's not the drain, it's not our control. And property owners, again, 1 for and 1 against, and it comes up to the conservation. Are they going to do anything? Because we don't have no right on private property and we don't have control of a natural watercourse river system. So it becomes where sometimes the conservation backs off and again, pointing the finger at us to do something, but anyways, it's sometimes a no-win situation. And frankly, the situation remains because we have no authority to be there.
Yep. Thanks, Jim. Barb?
Thank you, Chair, and through you, I can speak to the beavers being nature's engineers, because we'll tear one down and it's built right back up as beautiful as it was the day before. So I know how many times a trapper may have to go back in order to eliminate the issue. Discouraging them sometimes is a big challenge. And perhaps they can incorporate trail cameras in order to deter the theft, or at least identify the people who are stealing them. I do want to speak to the Conservation Authority and their lands. If they are notified that a potential beaver dam is creating a flood issue on neighboring lands, they will, look into that, and they are, I would imagine, required to look after that or work an agreement out, because their whole mandate is to prevent flooding. And those wetlands and those conservation lands are supposed to be there to absorb those things, but not when they're being encouraged by beavers. Thank you.
Jason?
Just wondering, Jim, I got no problem with getting rid of these beavers. The $200, I haven't got a problem with that either. I'm just wondering, in the past, did they document where they caught beavers? Like, I'd feel more comfortable when he's doing it this way, just to say, okay, I got 5 out of this property. I don't know if they do that or not.
Jim?
Yeah, so the process is we have a sheet, and actually it's a county form for their bit that they contribute, and it hasn't changed since I've been in place here. But that's the form we use, and it says where did it come from. So basically we're saying municipal drain, It has the count of how many tails taken from that location. And that is forwarded through the clerk's office up to the county for their portion. And that's what we base it off of. We also have the trapper come in, physically give us the tails, and we do the count, and then we keep the tails and we look after the disposal of the tails. So it is a process that we check, and it's not just, oh, here's how many I got. So there is verification that way.
Thanks, Jim. Maybe economic development could look into what we could do with those beaver tails.
Beaver hats.
Yeah, maybe. Jason?
I just wanted to comment, maybe this is nothing, but this is the same Steve Bates that also works for the township. Just to be transparent, I wanted to put it out there. Okay.
Any other questions? Oh, Jim?
Just one other comment, back many years ago, not just recently, but there used to be a need for the pelts too, and they would get compensated for that. Well, that's gone by the wayside. So that revenue they're not getting that they used to get from before. So
Again, economic development there. Just saying. All right. Not seeing any more questions. I'll call the question. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much. The next one is the bylaw that is related to that report, a beaver trapping agreement. Someone care to move that, please? Jim, seconded by Joan. Thank you. Any discussion? Jason?
I was just wondering, when we're doing this bylaw now, when Jim mentioned we've went up to $200, if it comes back at 25,000, we can open the bylaw. Like, how am I trying to word that?
We can revisit the bylaw at any time.
Yeah, anytime. But I'm just saying, for our budget coming up, what are we going to budget for? This 20,000 or?
Sounds like that.
I guess
I would think so.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
So that will be where the budget is proposed, at least
Yeah.
20,000. Okay. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Next report is automotive material stewardship agreement. If someone care to move that, please. Martin and Barb. Jim.
This is just an amending agreement that's already in place for these services. It's goes from $1.09 to $1.26 per hour for attendant to manage these at the transfer station. It's very minimal really what we collect, but anyways, there's not a whole lot, I don't think, to talk about. We'll take the few cents they're giving us and staff will sign the agreement back.
Every little bit helps. Any questions? I'll call a question. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you very much. Next report is regarding the ATEL Dundalk Water Tower Agreement. Someone care to move that, please? Jim and Joan, thank you. Jim.
Yeah, so in discussions with ATEL, we are in need of services to with the fiber all going out throughout Dundalk to connect our SCADA systems to integrate with all the sites. With the new Edgewood Green sewage pumping station, we had a little bit of a challenge with getting that one at that point in time. And we are still just finalizing that, but what we've done with ATEL is they're one of the first providers that have come forward wanting space up atop the water tower for 4 antennas and their hardware and everything else. The tower was built with a communications room that is dedicated for that type of antenna systems to have access and equipment only to that area. If they need to go up, they have to work through us to make that happen. But we've worked out with ATEL the agreement that they get their towers up there all at their cost, and they will provide fiber service. Some will have to be wireless till all the fibers in all the locations, but they will charge not for the data plans in exchange for their tower space.
Very good. Thank
The
you, Jim.
only other, sorry,
Nope.
the only other tower right now or antenna system that's going up is our Neptune water meter collector reading tower, which we've put DCs towards, and that'll be getting erected as well here this year.
Very good. Thank you, Jim. Questions? Martin.
Yeah, Jim. So these 4 antennas are just for this township. They won't be using anything to send out anything for their own infrastructure, like servicing the public. It is just for us. Because that'll affect the question or comment
No,
right after.
those are ATEL's antennas.
Yeah.
And we'll feed off of whatever connection they give to us, but that's for them to proliferate out their system throughout the directions.
Oh, so we're piggybacking on what they want to use for the public then?
Well, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Somewhat, yeah.
Well, and that brings up the question, when I saw this and quite frankly, it needs to be done because of the water system, but annually $3,600 a year, just out of curiosity. And this is maybe something to think about with the economic development officer. If any company wants to put their own antenna again, I actually checked corporate agreements and leases to put their antennas on pre-existing commercial towers, like towers. And with the footprint of the water tower, I like the word real estate because it's a big footprint. So there could be a potential, quite a few antennas up there. Unfortunately, it was American dollars and average, it was like 1,400 a month. That was US. So you're looking at 900 with that. I would just not like to see a precedent for a company to come in and say, well, look, we want to go up there and you're only charging ATEL this. We want that same amount, because the former CIO did say it could be a good opportunity to make money. And I'm only mentioning that because you did say it's for the thing, but they're using it for their own as well. So just a comment and just thank you.
Yeah, and you're right. We've done some research as well, and CAO Lundy as well knew some background information from her past experiences. And we did research that. We did have a conversation with ATEL as well. they're a smaller provider than some of these bigger ones as a Bell or somebody that have these $10,000 leases or whatever. We know they're out there, but again, they've got a much more expanded area that they're covering than what ATEL is, and the community service they're providing within the community. So that was that was the discussion point, and we wanted to make sure that we were getting our best value as well. So it was acknowledged, but didn't fit the situation is how it came down to it.
Thank you, Jim. Barb.
Thank you.
Thank you. And through you, I had the same question about the value. So thank you, Jim. What happens if the service that ATEL is providing to our wells stop communicating? What is the backup plan for the wells? Because if we're putting all the eggs in one basket with ATEL, just wondered if you have contingency for the wells to communicate as they do now, perhaps. I guess that's my only question. Thank you.
Jim.
Yeah, so currently we are running off radio frequency. So we have a tower at the well sites. It gets a radio signal off the radio frequency, and it's doing the communicating that way. I think we're paying, I should have maybe actually researched that, but I think we're paying about $3,000 to $4,000 a year for the communications that we've got. That service will no longer be required, converting all over to the fiber wireless. Sorry, I got off there. I need a little hint again to come back.
No, I just wondered, eggs in one basket,
right.
and what
Okay.
is our contingency should ATEL, because there are days where, there's a power failure and ATEL goes down.
So the built-in system right now, and we have this with the radio frequency, it'll go off and then it can sometimes be a couple days. But the systems all can work on their own, and they know they have some built-in communication that if this isn't happening, this happens. So that's all pre-programmed at the site specific, that they know what to do if they are down communications, that this one runs. So there's built-in defaults within SCADA.
Very good. Go ahead.
Thank you. That's great. And you just mentioned that we'll be saving about $3,000 a year by not having to have the radio frequency, and we're getting the value of about $3,600 per year service as part of this agreement. So that kind of adds up to. Thank you.
Jason.
I had the same question as Martin and Barb as well. I see that they're gonna provide data for the 6 different spots in Dundalk. I was just thinking, like, I have no idea from Martin threw out 10,000, whatever, but just wondering, now's the time to ask when, like, what about them providing data to here and to the Hopeville office? Just like, I mean, I don't know if they can do that, or I think it's the time to ask before, like, if we do set a precedent. I don't know. If it's only
Jim.
The Dundalk arena and the well site in an agreement, and I referenced it in the report bylaw, it was in 2017. There was an agreement piece with that they provide the service to the arena, which it's getting. The arena the well never got it because we couldn't incorporate the system enough at the time. So we just stayed with the radio frequency. So they have done some one-off with us. I'd have to double check back. I never really checked only particularly Dundalk. And I know we have other agreements, but I'm wondering if we do get service here because of their POP.
Yeah, I
think we
believe
do.
if I might, because of the POP and the one in Hopeville, we get it for the office and for here. I believe.
like
I'd have to look,
like
like,
get charged for it though. Or no?
No, we get
Oh,
it.
we don't, okay.
Yeah,
I just
yeah.
thought this is the time to ask for them, like.
No, like it's
once
in
it's
the
up there,
agreement that they provide that service for us.
Okay,
then.
I
We
Yeah,
host the pop for them.
yeah, we host it and
Point of presence is what they call it, a pop.
Sure,
And
you lost
so
me.
we host that. So in return, they provide services at no charge or very minimal charge.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Call a question. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much. Next item is the water tower agreement, the ATL Dundalk Water Tower Agreement. Someone move that, please. Jim, thank you. Someone second. Joan, thank you. Any discussion on the bylaw? All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much. Next item is the Southgate Road 26 Road Preparation Construction Project, which I have declared a pecuniary interest on, so I will turn this over to Deputy Mayor DeBreen.
Thank you, Mayor Milne. So I need a mover and seconder to receive it for information and approve the road preparation construction and redirect funds from the 2023 capital budget. Can I get a mover and seconder? Martin? I'm Joan. Jim?
Yeah, so this kind of developed this year over time. We've had calls in the past regarding visitors coming to and from the homestead, golfers, meeting traffic on that section of road, and it being a little bit narrow and very treed in, the big hill. And you know, there are better ways around, but people want to take the shortcut all the time. So it's a lot busier road than you think at times, and coming to landfill on the days that it's open as well. So we took into consideration this year with the brusher being down in our tree budget. And again, I talked to the treasurer of the day and said, you know, about using the operational budget to clear these trees back in preparation for bringing something capital forward in the future. And so that was how we operated to do the tree cutting with our own forces, basically this past summer. And now we've got all these stumps here and everything. And fortunately, that in this situation, we have somebody that owns a property on both sides of the road. And because of the hill, it needs to be cut back. You can't just get to the right of way amount of limit to say, okay, blast this road through. We need to encroach back further onto those lands. So we have a willing partner wanting to work with us. They have the equipment that can do the work. They have a place for the stumps to go, which is another bonus. And it doesn't have to be trucked around other roads in the township. It comes right off this road. So it's a little bit of a win-win situation for the township when we got thinking, and again, looking how we could fund this. We have a project savings with the culverts that we can take this fund and put it towards. This work would be done this fall yet, which really helps us because we had some concerns. Now we've cut these trees and we've got these stumps there, and we got to lower them down because we don't want the wing of the grader, especially if you meet somebody on the road kind of thing or whatever, that they're not damaging our equipment either. So this is cutting the hill as well as removing those stumps, placing that material. It's other than stripping the topsoil on the edges. That area is known for its aggregate, so that material will all get pushed down into the road base, and we'll put some sort of lift of gravel on it to finish it up for this year. But it will really improve road safety and traffic sight lines throughout that area. And again, it will just get busier in that neck of the woods for sure. So.
Martin?
Yeah. I didn't have a question about this until you mentioned how busy the road was. So I guess the question, how long will the road be closed? And would you strip away one hill and have one side of the road open? Get that done, then strip whatever there and have the other side open just because it is a busy road and there needs to be some kind of three-way?
Go ahead, Jim.
No, the plan would be to do like we did with the summer for the tree cutting. The road, there's no one lives on it. It's again, it's a shortcut or whatever. The road would be totally closed. They do one side of stump removal and then the other side, and then we would work on cutting the hill. An estimated time, depending on weather, is probably 2 weeks, but let's say weather maybe factors a little bit. Let's say it's another 3 weeks. So before the snow really flies in, it sounds like we would go at this in the next few weeks for sure. So again, not really impacting any local resident. There's no one that lives on that section of road.
Thanks.
Are there any other questions from council? One, Jim, is any of this 102,500 DC eligible? I know I asked you that and it didn't appear to be, but given the residential development, the 29 estate lots that Mr. Bai is building, would this not be something road improvement because of anticipated increased traffic?
Currently, I don't think that we can grab on because it's not necessarily increasing level of service because it's a road at a standard that is not being, it is being upgraded, but it's for a different reason as opposed to when we look at the paving, increasing the amount of asphalt is the analogy there. But this is something that maybe is that we can grab back on the DC for the future. I'm not sure. That's a discussion with our consultant, but not right now. It's again, we didn't think it was DC eligible at this point. So again, it wasn't considered at the time of the subdivision plan. This is more at the time now being more of the public traveling on it as opposed to what's happening in the future. And I no doubt it's going to be busier with some homes there for sure. But this is what's happening right now and what we're seeing. So.
Thank you. Any questions? Oh, go ahead, Monica.
Yes, just through you, Chair, to Public Works Manager. Just to the last point for environmental impact. Are there any plans for reforestation or environmental rehabilitation in the affected areas? Would that be something feasible or being looked at all?
Go ahead, Jim.
Not necessarily in this location. We're going all over the township trying to brush back the right of way. So I don't think we're going to plant trees in the right of way. The right of way tree plantings usually happen more in the residential subdivision areas, not necessarily on the rural roads, because we're trying to desperately clear back roads that are getting overgrown in. So tree planting to me would be defeating the purpose in this area. We would be looking at more of that adding the green space to other areas, maybe like parks and recs where the trees can stay and be there for a longer period of time.
All right, thank you.
I think it's important to note the importance of cutting back the tree and the brush from our ditches. It provides a better, less canopy, so the sun can get at the road as well, and gives you more room for snow storage. So you're doing a great job trying to get to all of our rural roads. It's a big job. Thank you. So if there's no other questions from council, I will call the question. All in favor? That is carried. Welcome back.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Thank you, Jim, for those reports. Next report is from our HR manager, Kayla Best, regarding performance appraisal schedule update. So I will ask for a mover and seconder. Jim and Joan. Thank you. And Kayla, welcome.
Thank you. So what this is we started going through our new performance appraisal process that we had approved previously and had feedback from senior staff on just some suggestions to make it a little bit more of a discussion with staff. So these are just updated schedules that we felt would work better.
Very good. Thank you, Kayla. Any questions from council? Martin?
I have really no problem with this report. I can see the sense in it. And I certainly don't mean to be glib when I say this, but you have developing, delivering, excelling. Developing, there's the other side of the coin where they're failing. Does that kind of chat come into play with them when you're talking about that? And the only other comment is if you're saving money from the retirement and all that and putting it into health benefits, I think that's a great idea. Any money saved could be good. So.
The last question was for the next report, I think.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, but the first question was for this one.
Oh, okay. What was the first question I said? Now you really got me confused.
Kayla.
I don't even know what conference I'm going to now.
Yes. So if somebody is still developing their skills, and that's a discussion of like, how can we help you develop them further? There's something that needs to be worked on there.
Yeah.
Okay. I apologize for that.
No, that's all right. We'll just hold that one in abeyance until the next report is here.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Monica?
Thank you. Just through you, Chair, to the HR manager. So just reading that, obviously, it's always a positive approach for a leadership team to, look at improving performance appraisal process and foster a meaningful conversation with staff. Just with regards to the change, and always language is always key to any conversation. How would that be monitored in terms of evaluating how successful this change over time, and what criteria would be used to see that measurement or these changes are indeed effective?
Kayla?
I think mainly we're just looking for feedback from staff on how their conversations are going. We did receive feedback from staff on our previous performance appraisal process that it just wasn't striking the conversations that maybe needed to happen. So we're hoping this fosters them. We will be asking people for feedback, and we'll see it from year over year too. Like if people are going from developing to delivering to excelling over the years, then we know that something's working.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Not seeing any. I'll call the question. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much. Moving on to the next report from Kayla regarding attraction and retention program. Someone care to move that, please? Jim and Joan, thank you. Kayla, please.
Thank you. So this report is part of the attraction and retention program that we've been looking into. We've been looking into the initiatives. There's a competitive labor market right now. So what we've done is gone and done a lot of research on industry standards to make sure that we're keeping up to date with other municipalities, local municipalities. And what we've done is taken what we found in our research and the industry standards and come up with recommendations. You'll notice that some are increasing, some are decreasing, some are staying the same. And I guess I'll just take questions.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there any questions? Are there any questions?
Just to comment.
Go ahead, Martin.
My comment stands. My comment stands from the previous snafu.
Very good.
Can you remind me what that is, please?
Oh, it must be catching. No, where you're saving money on the retirement allowances and that, and actually putting it back into benefits or whatever. It's kind of keeping it revenue. Is it revenue neutral? Is that an actual treasurer term? I don't know.
Yep, probably is. Well, I want to thank Kayla as well for all the work and diligence you've put into this. It's an evolving program, as it should be. And as you indicate, we are in a very competitive market and we need to be competitive. So thank you. Any other questions or discussion? I'll call the question. Monica, go ahead.
Sorry, just one more question through you, Chair, to Kayla, just with regards to the changes. Could you speak to if there's anything to speak to with regards to if there's any negative financial impact for the township or taxpayers with these changes?
Kayla?
Yes, thank you. So there will be some financial impact, but we'll be bringing those through the budget process. We're not asking for the financial impact at this time. Out of this report, it would be the retirement allowance and no longer allocating that. So it would be cost savings out of this specific report. And then the other ones that would be a more negative financial impact through the budget process.
Okay, thank you.
All right, very good. Okay, not seeing any other questions. I'll call the question. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much, Kayla. Bylaws and motions, Saugeen Valley Conservation Authority draft 2024 budget is there for your perusal. Would someone, that is for information, and then the bylaw is next. So someone care to move that? Martin, seconded by Barb. Discussion, budget. Barb, do you want to lead that off? I know you have a somewhat of a association there.
Yeah, thank you. I'm just wanting to get, if you
Bylaw,
don't mind a second.
No, not at all.
Well,
Report
I-
9.1.
I did want to share that if there, well, perhaps if there are any questions, I can address them,
Okay.
but also share that the increase to Southgate is very much associated with our increase in assessment. We actually had the highest growth in assessment than any of the member municipalities in the watershed, which the way it's all calculated does increase our levy significantly. So I'll take questions if there are any.
Okay, are there any questions? Jason?
Can you explain that a bit further?
Sure, I'll try. It is a question that we ask every year. So I've got a schedule that I'm trying to actually read. It's very small. So in the grand scheme of things, each member municipality in the watershed is assessed. We have 90% of our lands are in the Saugeen watershed. And the way the province calculates or allows us to calculate the levy is based on property assessment value. Because we've had so much growth, as Councillor Singh Soares mentions, we're the fastest growing municipality in Gray. That then calculates, there's a percentage calculation based on the value of property that could be affected in the event of a flood, let's say. Then so the percent that SVCA is proposing across the board is about 7%, but our percent levy change is 8%. And that's not actually, that's percentages that I asked the finance person at SVCA to share with that. They did, and part of the change, or a big portion of the change, is a result of Bill 23. And the province, through the Conservation Act changes, changing activities that were once borne by other self-funding are now category 1 or mandatory and are levy eligible. So that came into effect as well. So the province isn't actually providing any additional funding. In fact, they cut it in 2017 by 50%. So even though they've increased the items that we're supposed to, the mandated items that we're supposed to do, they haven't provided any additional funding to support that.
Okay, any other questions? Martin?
And this is for the water quality?
No.
Part 3? No? Is that another
This
file
is,
down the road?
sorry, if I may,
Yeah,
through the chair,
please.
the one that we're talking about right now is 9.1 is the actual budget for the services that are supposed to be delivered by the Conservation Authority through the Act. The other item is the Category 3 cost apportioning, which is the water quality and monitoring. That would be separate. That's the bylaw that we received previously. Mhm.
Okay, any, Martin, or Jason rather, sorry.
So we're not really, are we gonna see an increase in Saugeen Valley service, or is this just making up for the government shortfall on the other end?
That's a really good question. We are, and this is all dependent on whether or not the province freezes the fee increase, because the province through Bill 23 also suggested that, or mandated that we do a fee evaluation and be cost recovery. But then on December 28th, 2022, froze any fee increases. So that this assumes that we are going to be able to incorporate a 50% fee increase to development. So the people who are actually changing the assessed value within the watershed. Yes, unfortunately, the sign of the times with cost of living, and they did scale back. They had hoped for a few other staff and equipment, but we sent them away and they came back with a 7%.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, I'll call the question. All those in favor? That is carried. Moving on to the bylaw. Go ahead.
Through you, Chair, in the past, we've created a resolution to send to SVCA. I did send it to Lindsay, that we support or decline the proposed budget. Is it favorable to the council to create that resolution? And
I look to the clerk for process. The motion.
it's not a requirement.
The motion as presented was for information.
Yeah, I mean, we've voted on it now, but to me, if we didn't support it, maybe like we've received it for information, so I think it's fine myself, but.
Jason?
Just a question I asked before that, but what if we decline it? What's your process then?
And it would still has to go back to the board. And I would then, when it came to the vote, which is a weighted vote, I would vote accordingly. And then it would be a majority rules again.
Okay. So if the clerk's satisfied, I'm satisfied.
Thank you.
Yep. Next is the bylaw, Saugeen Valley Category 3 Cost Apportioning Agreement. Someone care to move that, please? Jim and Barb? Any discussion, questions? Not seeing any. I'll call the question. All those in favor? That is carried. No notice of motion. Consent items. We have consent items under regular business. Anyone? Barb? What? No way. We're going to be done by then. Motion to go past noon. Barb, second. Jason, all those in favor? That is carried. Consent items, regular business. There are 3 there. Anybody wish any of those removed for further discussion? Call the question. Oh, wait, I need a mover and seconder. Sorry. Jim and Jason. All those in Martin.
Just a question on 11.11, the water arrears, if you could talk about that.
You have a
So
specific question?
Yes, I do.
Yep, good.
This is either Lindsay and Jim. I think it's a good idea of what you've done to kind of recoup those losses. And I was just wondering, Jim, has there been any time where you've actually had to shut off people, or is it even legislated that you can do that? I know you can't, I know hydro in the wintertime can't cut off hydro. So
Jim?
Is that the last stop gap thing?
Yeah, there are a few tricks of the trade.
To incentivize people to pay the bill.
You can tweak it down a little bit.
Oh,
So, but no, we've had letters go, you know, we've had to go to the wall, with some people, but, we, as most municipalities have that, it's different a bit than what you mentioned about hydro, but, we do all have that basically in our bylaws. The one thing that did crop up during COVID, was that you couldn't turn water off. There was a specific memo that came out, that you keep the taps running. So, never seen that rescinded, but, no, it's a last resort, and, we may have exercised it, but it's on the next day.
Thanks, Jim. Any further questions? Okay, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Did I have a mover and seconder? Yes, I did. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much. Consent items under correspondence. Anybody wish any one of those? There's half a dozen there removed for discussion. Okay, call the question. Oh, I need a mover. I need a mover and seconder first. Barb?
Sure.
Move, second. Martin, question? Yeah, go ahead.
Just, I would like to comment on 11.2.1 and congratulate Corey Henry for being certified as intermediate, I believe it's intermediate road supervisor. So well done.
Yep, absolutely. Congratulations to Corey. Martin.
Again to Jim, the AMO recycling blue box. Do you really see any problems with our system with all the other systems coming down for recycling blue box? Diversion?
No.
No.
No. Jim.
Because my impression when I read the report, okay, it seems very heavily producer friendly, where it's talking more urban than rural. Like, so I was just wondering, maybe that's a discussion we could have after. I don't know, but
Jim, do you want to respond or?
Yeah, we just transitioned our Blue Box program October 1st. So we are working with our RLG. We met with them a week or two ago, just prior to the transition. And this is our first coming up billing cycle that admin staff is working closely with them to get it right and know how the new system is going to work for that Blue Box payment. But no, this report from AMO, I asked for it to go on to consent. Just again, the more so on that piece about landfill space capacity and how valuable of a piece of property we have right now.
That's an asset.
So
Certainly an asset.
We could
Thank
just,
you.
if we could just monetize that somehow and put it in the budget, that would be wonderful, but we can't seem to do that. So. Okay. Did we have not voted on that? Yes. No, we have not. We do have a mover and seconder though. Yes, we do. So. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much. Resolutions from other municipalities. Someone care? Well, first of all, does anybody want to remove any of those for further discussion? Need a mover and seconder to receive. Jason and Martin, thank you. Any questions? Okay, I'll call the question. All those in favor to receive? Thank you. There are no closed session related to the consent items. County report. You can see that the link is there to the county news items. If anybody wishes does anybody have any specific questions? Or Barb, do you have anything to add?
Not really.
Okay. Very good. Members' privilege. Anybody have anything they wish? Brenna. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would just like to bring good news to the council and inform the council that the Township of Southgate Historic Southgate Tourism Booth has been moved to Misty Meadows Market in Con along Highway 89. So the booth will be opened during the summer months and on special occasions throughout the year so that visitors can grab the historic Southgate maps as well as other regional tourism maps. And we'll be working with the South Grey Chamber of Commerce to make sure this is stocked with tourism information. And we're extremely happy to have this partnership with a local business to promote what they have to offer and what the township has to offer for visitors to the area.
Excellent. Thank you, Brenna.
Thank you.
And it is a wonderful little booth and much thanks to Elvin at Misty Meadows. I think I'm not sure who's more excited, him or Brenna, but they're both very excited to have this facility there. Barb.
And it certainly is a busy place, their parking lots. So hopefully it'll attract some more tourism. Through you, Mayor Milne, I just wanted to mention to council and our residents that the Santa Claus parades are coming up. I know that it's a month away, but the Dundalk Santa Claus parade is December 2nd at 6 p.m. And we have agreement with Public Works it's going to be a moving parade. So I wanted it to get on council's radar to see if they would be willing or available. They can look at their schedules and start to plan to perhaps participate in that moving parade on a township float. And the Holstein non-motorized parade is December 9th at 1 p.m. Again, same rules apply. We'll be decorating a horse-drawn wagon and hopefully have, perhaps we'll have the warden this year again.
Perhaps.
Yes, and other dignitaries. I just putting it out there for council to look at their calendars and start thinking about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Barb. Thank you for your efforts every year to organize that. It's much appreciated. Okay, Martin,
Yeah.
go ahead.
One thing, Barb, I didn't hear you for the date of the Dundalk one. Was that 2nd?
Yes.
Okay. And I'll be a broken record again. Blood donor clinic this Saturday. If there might be still chance to book an appointment, and if you can't get in on this Saturday, then the next one's going to be in the January 2024. And I like their logo. It's in you to give. So there you go.
Very good. Thank you, Martin. Any other? Brenna.
Sorry, just one other comment. Next week on November the 8th, we'll be hosting Coffee with the Mayor for our business owners to be able to engage with members of council and staff on the theme of opportunities arising from growth. So we would like to invite all the council members as well as business owners to come and have a lively discussion and engage with us.
Absolutely.
And that's, in collaboration with the South Grey Chamber of Commerce.
Very good. Thank you. Dina.
And I just would add to that, this South Grey Chamber of Commerce requires registration. The event is free, but they do need numbers for that. So, yeah.
Excellent.
Should be a
Thank you.
good event. And our own Krista from Wilton will be on the panel. So I thought that was quite interesting for our consultant to be there as a panelist. So it's great.
Yep. Look forward to that. Jason.
So if we accept it on the calendar, is that good enough, or do we have to?
Brenna.
Yes, if the councilors accepted on the calendar,
Okay, good.
then I notified of the South Grey Chamber. Thank you.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Question. Monica. Oh, I'll come back to Jim in a minute. Monica.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick question for the Dundalk Christmas parade. I know I think it was mentioned 6 p.m. I'm just wondering, was there ever consideration to have it a bit earlier in the day, like Holstein, like at 1, or is that something that's not possible?
It's not our event, but the Dundalk parade has always been an evening parade with lights, and that wouldn't have the same effect as during the day, but it's always organized by the community. We just happen to put a float in, so we don't have a say on what time.
Who is the chair of that committee?
I don't know if there is a chair, but I do know that Luisa Siliberto is on that committee.
So you might want to touch base with Isabella.
Louisa? Okay. I think Louisa.
Louisa, sorry. Louisa.
Okay. All right.
Sorry.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you.
Jim.
Side Road 11 will be paved tomorrow.
others. No small amount of satisfaction in hearing that, I can tell you for sure. Thank you for that wonderful piece of news. If you'd have just said that right off the start of the meeting, we would have been done. Anyway, thank you. Any other news and celebrations? Can't top that, I don't think. All right, so we have a closed meeting. I think it'll likely be brief, but nonetheless, we have a closed meeting. Be it resolved that council proceed into closed session at 11:58 in order to address matters relating to litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board. More specifically, the subject is ongoing litigation and that all those required remain in attendance. Would someone care to move that, please? Martin and Jason, all those in favor? That is carried. So we will Thanks, Jim. Very good. All right, I'll call the meeting back to order. Sure. Sure.
I just wanted to acknowledge that we've had a guest in our midst all this entire meeting. Melissa, just a second, where'd my piece of paper go? Melissa Lynn Ferguson, who is here job shadowing her dad for grade 9 Take Your Work Kid to Work Day. So welcome, and we've enjoyed having an audience for a change. Hope we didn't bore you too silly.
Thank you very much for that. And thank you, Melissa, for being here. Thank you, Jim, for bringing her. Right on. She probably.
You'll have a much more exciting afternoon, I'm sure.
There, yeah, for sure. Okay, so confirming bylaw. Someone care to move that, please? Jim and Barb, all those in favor? That is carried. And I did fail to acknowledge that we only discussed in closed session those matters which were listed for us to go into closed session. Motion to adjourn. Jason and Monica, all those in favor? We're adjourned. Thank you.